and the Trump presidency is behind us, which will be a tender moment in the life of this country. And we are going to have to unify a nation that will be as divided as ever, and while doing it, address big issues that...
This is Mayor Pete. I've never listened to any of these.
Yeah, I've actually never heard
before.
before.
For the Trump presidency as a whole, a climate approaching the point of no return. The fact that we've still got to act on health care, kids learning active shooter drills before they learn to read, and an economy where even when the Dow Jones is looking good, far too many Americans have to fight like hell just to hold on to what they've got.
Mr. Mayor.
Those are the crises that will be awaiting the next president and will be at the heart of our campaign.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Andrew.
Vice President Biden, you've suggested in your campaign that if you defeat President Trump, Republicans will start working with Democrats again. But right now, Republicans in Congress, including some of whom you've worked with for decades, are demanding investigations not only of you, but also of your son.
These people are so awful.
How would you get those same Republicans to work with you?
Well, look, the next president of the United States is going to have to do two things. Defeat Donald Trump.
He can't talk.
That's number one. And number two, he's going to have to be able to go into states like Georgia and North Carolina and other places.
Because he's already mumbling.
Majority. That's what
he has not had like a good performance at all.
Most likely
like, during any of these debates, he's done so poorly.
Presidency in the first place, and secondly, who is most likely to increase the number?
So I don't understand how he could be leading anything anywhere.
And in the Senate. And by the way, I learned something about these impeachment trials. I learned, number one, that Donald Trump doesn't want me to be the nominee. That's pretty clear. He held up aid to make sure that.
So now, is this the secret plan that Biden had all along?
The Donbass are getting killed by Russian
was to set up the whole quid pro quo thing so that he could bring attention to himself?
I've learned a lot
was
about
getting caught part of your plan
from these hearings that they're being held. But the bottom line is, I think we have to ask ourselves the honest question: who is most likely to do what needs to be done? Produce a Democratic majority in the United States Senate, maintain the House, and beat Trump.
Senator Harris, your thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, we have a criminal living in the White House.
Do you think that she's hot?
In 2020, the biggest
Rex?
issue before us until we get to that tender moment is justice is on the ballot.
Harris, no.
What we saw today is Ambassador Sondland by his own
not
words
Kamala.
told us that
Tulsi, yes.
everyone was in.
Did you watch her workout videos?
That means it is
on,
a criminal enterprise.
Snapchat or Instagram or whatever.
Engaged in by the president, from what we heard today,
I've seen
the
a
vice
couple of
president,
those.
the Secretary of State, and the Chief of Staff. And so this not only points to the corrupt nature of this administration and the need for these impeachment proceedings to go forward,
She is.
but it also points to
Her
another
Instagram
issue.
really
And back to the question that you asked
turned
earlier,
me off from her.
which is, what does this mean for the American people? Because what it means when I watch this is that there are clearly
good on the
two
debate
different
stage, though.
set of
I
rules
think we're
for
streaming
two different groups of
under
people in America.
Death Stranding
the
on
powerful
Twitch.
people who with their arrogance
Yeah,
think they can get away with this,
so
and then everybody
if you're
else.
looking at the Death Stranding
Because here's the
category,
thing. For those
I guess the
working
stream
people
will
who
come
are
up
working 2 and 3 jobs,
of the
if they don't
presidential
pay that
debate.
credit
I hope
card by the end
somebody
of the month,
watches
they get a
this.
penalty. For the people who don't pay their rent, they get evicted. For the people who shoplift, they go to jail.
Twitch doesn't have
We
a
need the same set of rules for
MSNBC
everybody. And part of the reason
option.
I'm running for president is to say that we have to bring justice back to America for all
people now in the chat are just
and
saying,
not just
I
for
want to go
some.
down on
Thank you,
Tulsi
Senator.
Gabbard
Senator
so bad.
Warren,
It's
you have cast yourself as a fighter. If
She
you
could
were
totally
elected,
crush
though,
your head
you would be
between your
walking
thighs.
into an existing fight.
Yeah, like a fucking
country
watermelon.
That is already
What's
very
with her being
divided
a-
over the Trump presidency?
Look at
among
Elizabeth
other things.
Warren's dead
Do you
face.
See that divide
Holy shit.
Or do you need to bring the country together if you become president?
Like,
to
look at
achieve your
that.
goals?
So I think the way we
Imagine
achieve
her
our goals
launching
bring our
airstrikes
country
and
together is
shit.
We talk about the things
What, Rex?
that unite us, and that is that we want to build
His
an
mouth
America
look,
that
man.
works
His mouth look.
for the people, not one that just works for rich folks. You know, I have proposed a 2-cent wealth tax. That is a tax for everybody who has more than $50
I feel like talking
billion
about
in
taxes,
assets.
like,
Your first $50 billion is free and
I
clear.
remember when that
But your
first,
$50
like,
billion
really
at the
became a
first
thing. It was like the
dollar,
Bush
you gotta
tax
pitch in
cuts,
2
the
cents,
Bush
and when you
tax
hit $1
cuts.
billion, you got to
Like,
pitch
it
in a few
became like
pennies
a
more.
really
Here's the thing.
specific thing
Doing a wealth
with,
tax
like, Michael
is not
Moore
about punishing anyone.
sort of stuff.
It's
Like,
about
it
saying
took
you
off,
built
and the
something
Democrats
great
have
in this
never been
country,
able
good
to
for
let it
you.
go.
But you did it using workers.
And then
all
Obama,
of us
like, he
helped
didn't
pay to
even
educate.
repeal all the
You did it
taxes.
using
So
your
now they
getting
can't
your
really
goods
talk
to
about the
on roads
Bush
and
tax
bridges,
cuts
all
so
of
much
us helped pay
specifically,
for it. You
and about,
did
like,
it.
repealing them
Protected
and how
by
that's going to
police
pay
and
for everything, because
firefighters,
Obama,
all of
like,
us helped pay the
rolled them
salaries
back,
for
like,
it.
a little bit.
So when you make it big, when you make it really big, when you make it top 1/10 of 1%
So if you call them the Bush
big,
tax
pitch
cuts
in 2
anymore,
cents. so everybody
people will
else
naturally
gets a chance
ask like
to
why
make it. And
Obama
here's the
didn't
thing.
repeal them.
That's something
So they
that
can't
Democrats
really say
care
that anymore,
about,
but
independents
they have
care
not
about,
let it
and
go.
Republicans care about. Because regardless of party affiliation, people understand across this country, our government is working better and better for the billionaires, for the rich, for the well-connected.
These graphics
and
are
worse
so
and worse
realistic.
for
Thank you,
everyone else.
Kojima.
We come together when we acknowledge that and say we're
Thank
going
you,
to
could have
make real
worked
change.
on
Thank you. Senator Booker,
Elizabeth
do you agree with
Warren's.
that strategy?
Everybody in the
Well,
chat,
first
you
of all,
need to go
I think we
retweet
all
the
agree
stream
that we
so
need to
people
bring
can
in
get
a lot
in
more
here.
revenue in this country. We actually have
This is
a
like
real
the most
problem
important
with the
thing to
tax
ever
raise,
happen in the
tax
history of our
loopholes,
nation is
tax
this Democrat
cheats.
debate.
And
Yeah,
I
get
don't
Notch
agree
in
with
here.
the wealth tax, the way that Elizabeth Warren puts it. But I agree that we need to raise the estate tax. We need to tax capital gains.
Is this guy
as ordinary
supposed to be
income.
Obama?
Real strategies will increase revenue.
This is Obama.
But here's the challenge. We as Democrats need to fight for a just taxation system. But as I travel around the country, we Democrats
feel
also
like
have to talk
having
about how
taxes,
to
like,
grow
doesn't
wealth
matter at all.
as well.
Because
When I stood in church
you're not going to be
recently
able to
and
raise
asked
any
folks in
money
Black church,
compared to
how many people
like
here want to be
cutting the
entrepreneurs,
Pentagon budget.
half the church raised their
Jesus
hand.
Christ, this guy's
If
face
we
is
as
like a
country don't
deranged
start,
Disney
we have a party,
animatronic.
don't start talking not just about how to tax wealth, but how to give more people opportunities to create wealth, to grow
Do you think they get
businesses,
face
to have
coaching?
their American dream. Because we need to raise the
Yeah,
minimum
I
wage
think they
to
get a
a
lot of
living
shit
wage,
like that.
$15 an hour. But the people in communities I frequent, they're not aspiration for their lives.
Wouldn't
It's
be
not just to
surprised
have
if they
those
get
fair
pharmaceuticals,
wages.
too.
They want to have an economy that provides not just equalities
I mean, that's happened
in
so
wealth,
often
but they
in the
want to have
past
equalities of opportunity. And that's what our
Look at his
party
pupils.
has to be about as well.
Senator Warren, you wanted to respond.
Is he
Sure. So let me just tell
Did
you
you see
what
how
we
she
can
just
do with
said
that
sure?
2-cent wealth tax.
Like
2
they're like
cents on
really
the top 1/10 of
cranked up on
1% in this
something.
country, and we can provide
What percentage
universal
of the field
childcare
on the
for
stage
every
right now,
baby
Rex,
in this
would
country
you
ages
say
0 to
is
5.
on some
That
sort
is
of
transformative.
amphetamine?
We can provide universal pre-K for
Honestly,
every
I wouldn't be
3-year-old and
surprised if it was
4-year-old in
all of them.
America. We can stop
I mean, I think it's
exploiting
probably
women,
universal with
largely
these
black and
guys.
brown women who do
Beta
this work,
blockers, too.
and we can raise the wages
Hitler
of
did
every
it.
child care worker and preschool teacher in America. We can put
The Democrats are the real
$800
Hitler.
billion
They use
new federal
amphetamines to
dollars
fuel
into
their
all of our
orgiastic
public
debates.
schools. We can make college tuition free for every kid. We can put $50 billion into historically black colleges and universities, and we can cancel student loan debt for 95% of the folks who've got it. 2-cent wealth tax, and we
Look
can
at- he
invest
can't even
in
believe it.
an entire
Let me
generation's
let
future.
Senator Booker respond.
Sure.
Again, I agree with
They
the
can't
need to do
cancel
all of those
all the
things.
student debt?
We're all
Just
united in wanting
95%
to see
of it?
universal preschool,
Jesus.
and I'll fight for that.
The
We're
thing-
all
Yeah, what
united
about
the 5%
in wanting to
they're
fund
leaving behind?
HBCUs.
That's the
Heck,
thing that I
wouldn't be
don't
here If it
understand,
wasn't for two parents that went
is
to
that
HBCUs.
you
But
can
the tax,
literally
the way we're
just
putting it forward right now,
create
the
the
wealth tax,
money.
I'm sorry, it's cumbersome.
Like,
It's been
there's
tried
no
by other
such thing
nations.
as the
It's
federal
hard to
budget. Like,
evaluate. We can get
the
the same
number
amount of revenue through just taxation.
dollars
But
that
again,
the
we as
United States has, it
Democrats
doesn't make
have got to start
any sense. It's
talking
not
just about
recorded
how we
anywhere. Like, they
tax from
don't
a
actually
stage,
know. They use like
but how we
statistical
grow wealth in this
methodology
country amongst those
to like
disadvantaged
estimate like
communities
how much
that are not
money
seeing
they
it.
think they're spending
Look
and
at
how much
VC
money they
dollars
think
in
they
this country.
have. Like,
They
they
have
don't
like
even.
an estimate
They
of
can't
how
even
much
actually
money
count it.
they
They can't
have.
give an
There is
accurate
worth
count.
in the inner city. There is value in our rural
And it's
areas.
all
If I was
make-believe,
President of the United States, we're going to have a
fundamentally.
fair, just taxation where millionaires and billionaires pay their fair share. But dear God, we're going to have pathways to prosperity for
It
more
absolutely
Americans. We're going to see
is completely
a change
fake.
in what we see right now. Small businesses, new
The federal budget is fake. It doesn't
country.
exist.
Thank you,
We need to
Senator.
give
Senator
more
Warren.
new entrepreneurs
Senator Warren,
access to
briefly,
wealth.
just
So-
He's the
your
lady
last
in the
thoughts.
middle.
So just the
Yeah,
idea
I was
behind
just gonna
what is
ask who that
fair
lady in blue is.
Today, the 99%
Is she
in
hot?
America are on
Which one is
track
the
to pay
hottest? I guess
about
Tulsi's definitely the
7.2%
Yeah,
of their
Tulsi's
total
like the-
wealth.
Her
Her name's
in
Carson.
taxes.
She's like a FinDom type.
1/10 that I want to say pay 2 cents more, they'll pay 3.2% in America. I'm tired of freeloading billionaires. I think it's time that we ask those at the very top to pay more so that every single one of our children gets
But
a real
everybody is
Senator
tired
Booker,
of
Senator
freeloading
Warren.
billionaires. Everybody's tired of corporations
Senator
getting away
Booker.
with paying zero taxes.
Thank-
We're not disagreeing with that.
Thank you very much.
So every single
Thank you.
child
Senator-
gets shoved in a
Mayor
quiet
Buttigieg,
room.
You have said, quote,
Did you read
"I
that
want to
article?
allow us to get so rapidly
Yeah, that was
into fighting
fucked up.
that we start to think fighting is the point."
It's one of those things like I don't even know how to
Oh, yeah,
process
that was
it.
President
disturbing.
Obama in his 8
Yeah.
years
If
in
you haven't
office.
read the
What would
article,
you
if
do
anybody
that
in the
President
stream hasn't
Obama
read the
didn't do to
article,
change that?
you
Well,
should
as
go
President
and
Obama commented recently,
check it out in the
we
Chicago
are
Tribune
now
about
in a
the
different
quiet
reality
rooms
than
at
we
like
were even 12
schools.
years ago. And to me, the extraordinary potential of of the moment we're in right now is that there is an
Were you
American
diagnosed
majority
autism at
that
all,
stands
Rex?
ready to tackle big issues that didn't exist in the same way even a few years ago. Even on issues where
kind of a
Democrats
complex
have been
story
on
there.
defense,
More
like
conduct
immigration
disorder
and guns. we have a majority to do the right thing.
Were you medicated for it at all when you were little?
Polarize that majority. For example, on health care. The reason I insist
they gave me a prison psych.
As the strategy
they gave you what?
They gave me a prison psych. I used to pull
that is something that, as a governing strategy, we can unify the American people around.
Their patients details and stuff out of her.
Making it available
to
pretty
anybody
crazy who wants it, but without the divisive step of ordering people onto it, whether they want to or not. And I believe that commanding people to accept that option.
I feel like that's exactly it. School is already prison. School's already like there's like the talk of like the school to prison pipeline, but I feel like the ultimate goal is to just make them completely
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
coextensive with each other to have it be the same system. Look at Bernie sticking up his hand.
On Medicare for all. Democrats have been winning elections even in red states with a very different message on health care.
Why are they're definitely focusing on Warren, I feel like, most of all.
What do you say to voters who are worried?
So just to echo the guy in the chat about the haloderpidol or whatever the hell it is, they already do prescribe kids with antipsychotics for attention deficit and stuff.
37 million people who decided not to have a prescription.
Is that true?
Because they just can't.
Oh God, yeah. Look it up. Like Seroquel and children.
Because they just can't.
There was a couple articles about it a couple days ago.
Let's bring as many people in and get as much help to the American people as
yeah, that
we
shit's
can,
really
as
fucked up.
fast
Prescribing
as we can.
Haldol is, I don't even understand that. I know some people in the
I thought
chat
you
will
just got,
probably
like,
know
rid of
Jason
them.
Genova.
Drugs on things like
Jason
insulin
Genova's on
and EpiPens. That's going to
Haldol.
save tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for people. I'm going to defend the Affordable Care Act from the sabotage of the Trump administration.
Wasn't the Affordable Care Act a complete fucking failure before Trump even was in office?
People into Medicare for all at no cost to them, everybody under the age of 18, everybody who has a family of 4, income less than $50,000. I'm going to lower the age of Medicare to 50 and expand
So she's
Medicare
not offering
coverage to include
medicine for most of the
vision
people
and
who
dental and
pay for
long-term
insurance.
care. And then
Fuck no. Like pharma costs in the States are just atrocious.
Yeah, you're Canadian. Did you see the Michael Moore documentary about the ingenious Canadian healthcare system? Is that true?
Oh yeah. 50-50. Like drugs are cheaper, but like it can take a long time.
Campaign, including your plans for Medicare for all, as a political revolution.
Yes.
President Obama explicitly said the country is, quote, less revolutionary than it is interested in improvement. The average American doesn't think we have to completely tear down the system and remake it, end quote. Is President Obama wrong?
No, he's right. We don't have to tear down the system, but we do have to do what the American people want. And the American people understand today.
Are the Bolsheviks at Chapo Trap House going to be able to accept that Bernie right now?
That's what I was. They're like, no.
Setting aside terrorist methodology. He's setting aside like Orthodox Leninism. He should be saying he's denying the revolution. He's just outed himself as an abhorrent gradualist.
Canada or other countries. 500,000 people go bankrupt because of medically related issues. They come down with cancer, and that's a reason to go bankrupt. Now, some of the people up here think that we should not take
the guy in the
on
chat,
the insurance industry.
I suppose I'd rather have it in Canada just because it'd be a hell of a lot more affordable.
If you think back to FDR,
but like, if the wait times were too bad, I don't know.
What do you have to do to wait? Like, what do you mean? What you have to? Can you schedule like a specialist appointment or like GP visit, and you have to like wait for it?
Much. Like some places you can't even get a family doctor, like in
no co-payments, no out-of-pocket expenses. That's where
there we go.
Thank you, Senator.
Some places you can't even get a family doctor, like in Victoria, BC. My understanding is that's almost like you pretty much have to go to clinics.
$40 trillion. The fact is that right now, the vast majority of Democrats do not support Medicare for all. It couldn't pass the United States Senate right now with Democrats. It couldn't pass the House. Nancy Pelosi is one of those people who then thinks it makes sense. We should build on Obamacare.
So he's running on Nancy Pelosi. He's running on the integrity of Nancy Pelosi. Do you remember, like, I feel like I'm crazy, but does anybody remember when Nancy Pelosi got busted for insider trading by 60 Minutes?
You have to give up your private insurance.
And she made like a ton of money by like, doing insider trading based on how votes were going to go.
They can buy into a Medicare-like proposal in my plan. Drug prices go down.
No, I can't remember that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
But here's the deal.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. Like 60 Minutes had a whole episode about it where they looked at the secret world of congressional insider trading, and then it wasn't even like illegal. Like it technically wasn't illegal for them to do insider trading based on the internal politics of the Congress and their knowledge of what was going to pass and what was not going to pass.
You have criticized Hillary Clinton as the, quote, personification of the rot.
Oh, there's
the
Queen.
What is the rot you see in the Democratic Party?
That our Democratic Party,
if you're jerking off to this stream, this is like the time to do it. Will Moran Tulsi, what's she saying?
It is a party that has been and continues to be influenced by the foreign policy establishment in Washington, represented by Hillary Clinton and others' foreign policy, by the military-industrial complex and other greedy corporate interests. I'm running for president to be the Democratic nominee that rebuilds
she just named the MIC.
takes it out of their hands and truly puts it in the hands of the people of this country.
That's the thing I don't like. I feel like the president's biggest thing is that he's supposed to do is foreign policy, and Bernie doesn't have any foreign policy.
Americans who are calling for an end to this ongoing Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign
Tulsi the only one who's like
doctrine
actually talking about foreign policy in this whole election? I feel like none of them else. Like I know
needlessly
Biden wants to
sending my
increase.
brothers and sisters
Like
in uniform
Biden wants to
into
become.
harm's
He
way,
said that he wanted to
fighting
become
wars
like the
that
holy
actually
warrior of
undermine
like the
our
American
national
spirit,
security and
or
have
some
cost
shit
us
like that, and he
thousands
wanted to like
of
increase
American
troop
lives.
deployments,
These are
and he wants to
wars
increase
that have
Pentagon
cost us
spending.
as American
Like that's
taxpayers
Biden's like official
trillions of dollars
platform
since
in this
9/11
election.
alone, dollars that have come out of our pockets, out of our
And I think that
hospitals, out
also
of our
that's
schools,
Mayor
out of
Pete
our
too. Mayor Pete, I just saw that he said that he was going to send troops to Mexico.
End these regime change wars, work to end this new Cold War and arms race, and instead invest our hard-earned taxpayer dollars actually into serving the needs of the American people.
Thank you,
Mayor Pete is a fascist.
Senator Harris, any response?
And his dance is fascistic.
I mean, he is gay.
I think that it's unfortunate that we have someone on the stage who is attempting to be the Democratic nominee for president of the United States.
I always thought, I mean, Kamala's kind of hot.
Spent 4 years full-time on Fox News.
I mean, I could get roasted in the chat for saying that, and people are just going to say that she's super busted.
Like, what would Wyhung think of that?
I know that he wouldn't like it, but I'm just saying that, like, I think she's kind of hot.
When Donald Trump was elected, not even
she has good hair.
Buddied up to Steve Bannon to get a meeting with Donald.
I just want to say that, like, as far as I know, Bernie is the only one who promised to release the UFO documents and stuff.
And then spends full time during the course of this campaign.
Yeah, Trump kind of promised that, didn't he? I remember something he sort of said at the beginning of his campaign that he was going to like release everything. That would be such a.
I mean, they had Tucker Carlson asking him about like the crash retrieval program, and he just like
someone who has the ability to rebuild the Obama coalition. And bring the
pretty lit, though, I have to say.
Together, I believe
that's one big thing that they're not talking about on the stage is about
Roswell.
Is about UFO research. There's like a lot of active UFO research that goes on.
And smears
Dude.
and innuendos,
like, you know who was a big supporter of that was
me.
Well, obviously TekWars supports UFO research, but
foreign policy, which only makes me guess
Harry Reid
that she will, as
was like
president,
funding all this like
the status quo,
secret UFO research.
Yeah, that was a thing. And I mean, all the major aerospace corporations have had their own little programs running since the 1950s.
This is personal to me because I served in Iraq. I left my seat in the state legislature in Hawaii, volunteered to deploy to Iraq, where I served in a medical unit where every single day I saw the terribly high human cost of war. I take very seriously.
And Bernie has absolutely nothing to say about any of this. He's not like jumping in at all to say.
Armed forces and to make sure always, no, I'm not going to put party interests first. I will put the interests of the American people.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I want to briefly give Senator Harris a
follow up on the guy in chat. Like the Skinwalker Ranch stuff, that all turned out to be human experimentation stuff.
Right now is a nominee who
it's slowly coming out. There's kind of a little bit of drama about it right now.
What's going on with that?
Standing mostly in a courtroom.
The guys who were up there finally realized that they were probably being experimented on.
Regardless of their race,
the weird shit they were seeing was like weapons
regardless
testing
of where
and
they
stuff.
live geographically, regardless of the party with which they're registered to vote or the language their grandmother speaks. We need someone on this debate stage.
I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that Kamala is hotter than Tulsi.
And to win the election.
But I've seen Tulsi's like Instagram posts of like her working out. I mean, and she's like super fit, obviously. I don't know how Kamala looks, but I mean,
but in fact, you have spent
it looks like she has kind of like big titties and shit. I mean, I'm into it.
In support of your political goals. How do you respond to critics who see you as the embodiment of a special interest?
What I've done over the
yeah,
last
people are now trying to say in the chat that I'm full of shit, and that's not even true.
Of ordinary American citizens.
I don't know who this guy is. I don't know who Tom Steyer is.
We have a broken government in Washington, D.C. It's been purchased by corporations. Over the last decade, with the help of the
so he's not an
people,
NRX candidate. He does not believe in the government purchasing, corporations purchasing the government. That's what I really wanted for Trump. I thought that like Trump was gonna like sell Detroit to OCP or something.
What was it, Iceland or Greenland?
Yeah, he's gonna buy Greenland.
That would have been the best thing of his election.
Trump would do like full liquidation of like all the U.S. assets and just like start selling, like auctioning off cities to like Google.
What I've done is to try to
I think
push
that's more
power
Andrew
down to the
Yang's
American people,
potential,
to take power away
but he
from the corporations who
seems like
bought
too
our
much of a pussy to
and
do
I'm
it.
talking now about
See his little math
structural
pin
reform in
on his breast
Washington,
there?
D.C.
Is he seriously wearing a little pin that says math?
If you want bold change in the United States, you're going to
Did he
have
put
to
out a
have
hat
new
that's
and
like
people in charge. I'm
the
the only
420
person on this
edition
stage who
of
will
the
talk
math
about
hat?
tournaments.
So it's
Vice
like a
President
math
Biden won't,
weed
Senator
hat.
Sanders won't. Even Mayor
Really?
Buttigieg will not talk about term limits and structural change.
They have they? I don't even. They
American
haven't
people
asked
pass
Yang one
laws
single thing so
themselves
far.
through direct democracy. It's time to push the power back to the
Yeah, on Twitter it's going to be Yang media blackout.
A brief response.
Well, I'm someone that comes.
Okay, she's busted. She's really busted. She's not like Kamala. Like Kamala is not busted, guys. Kamala's pretty hot. This, I mean, I'm not into this.
That's what we should do so that we
is she
stop
crying?
this
Look
dark
at
money
there's
and
like
outside money
look at
from
her
coming
eyes.
into our politics. I have led the way.
Is there's like tears in her eyes.
Voting. And I can tell
Her
you
head
right
is
now,
shaking if you look at her.
Yeah, look at her head.
Her head is like
allow every kid in the country
vibrating
to register to vote when they turn 18. If we had a system like this and we did something about gerrymandering and we stopped the voting purges and we did something significant about making sure we don't have money in politics from the outside.
There's something wrong with her. Look, and look at her.
Right now.
Her left eye.
Oh yeah, she does look like she's crying.
I am someone that doesn't come from money. I see my
Look
husband
at
out
Yang
there, my first
holding up his
Senate race.
hand.
I literally called everyone I knew and I set what is still an all-time Senate record. I raised $17,000 from ex-boyfriends. And I'd like to point out, it is not an expanding base. So I don't just
what drug causes that?
This is alcohol.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar.
Findom right there.
Bring you in. Mr. Yang.
Is she the official Findom can?
Mr. Yang, you've made a virtue of your outsider status. You've never
Mad.
served in the military
So
or in government.
stupid.
What has prepared you to respond to a terrorist attack or a major disaster?
Well, first, I just want to stick up for Tom. We have a broken campaign finance system, but Tom's been spending his own money fighting climate change. You can't knock someone for having money and spending it in the right way, in my opinion.
Thanks, Andrew.
No problem.
The world's not ready for an Asian president.
As commander
I feel like all of the Asian representation in media shit that's been happening is probably funded by Andrew Yang.
Artificial intelligence.
He's friends with Eric Weinstein.
Like, you know, Crazy Rich Asians, and like Netflix had that romantic comedy about like
and
Asians.
every time one of those happens, it's like a huge thing on Twitter.
Yeah, and it's like Asian representation is happening. Like, don't Asians have like huge movie production systems in Hong Kong and Japan and South Korea? Like, what the fuck? But I feel like
Midway is actually funded by like Chinese money. It has a whole like pro-China subplot.
Yeah,
they can't even make more without Chinese money.
And that's what
something I heard about the movies, that it was doing well in China because the Chinese just like seeing Japanese people get fucking killed.
In a democratic city, receiving just under 11,000 votes.
I would definitely
and
sell it.
In your only statewide race, you lost by 25 points. Why should Democrats take the risk of betting on you?
Yeah, it's weird watching this in so high res. Like, it's disorienting. I feel like I don't want to see these people in such detail.
We need
like,
something very different right now.
Make it fuzzy and put it in black and white.
We need somebody who can go toe-to-toe, who actually comes from the kinds of communities that he's been appealing to.
Do you still smoke, Rex?
Talk a big game about helping the working class while helicoptering between golf courses.
Well, I've thankfully managed to phase it out, because, I mean, they banned menthols up here, right?
Yeah.
I can't get them unless I go to the States, but luckily I still get mango jewel pods.
Literally the least wealthy person on this stage.
Oh, that's crazy.
I also wore the uniform of this country
I'm
and
blessed.
know what is at stake in the decisions that are made in the Oval Office in the Situation Room. And I know how to bring people together to get things done.
Yeah, why aren't they talking about Jewel right now?
From the perspective of Washington, what goes on in my city might look small,
more
but
important.
frankly, where we live, the infighting on Capitol Hill is what looks small. The usual way of doing business in Washington is what looks small. And I believe we need to send somebody in who has a different kind of experience.
Why?
The experience on the ground, solving problems, working side by side with neighbors on some of the
I think that all he's
issues
done
that
though
come
is
up
like
in
sell.
Recognizing what is required.
Like
of
he
executive
allowed a bunch of like
leadership and bringing
redevelopment
that
of
to
like
Washington
affordable
so that
housing in
Washington
his
can
city
start looking a little
into
more like our best-run communities
luxury
in the heartland
condos.
before
That's
the
his
other
like
way around starts to
experience.
happen.
Thank you, Mayor. Senator Klobuchar, you said this of Mayor Buttigieg, quote, "Of the women on the stage, do I think that we would be standing on that stage if we had the experience he had? No, I don't. Maybe we're held to a
I said the guy in the chat, if I wasn't dry, I'd be smoking Jack Harar, because that's the shit.
First of all, I've made very clear, I think that
I can't believe that they banned menthols
stage, and I am honored to be
in
standing
Canada.
next to him.
That's sick.
But
It's
what I
such
said
bullshit.
was women are held to a higher standard. Otherwise, we could play a game called Name Your Favorite Woman.
Is there a
President,
black market at all
which we can't do
for
because
menthols
it
in
has
Canada?
all been
Yeah, that's what I
men.
was
There might
thinking.
be, but my understanding is that's like run from the reserves and stuff,
I think
cross-border
any working
smuggling.
woman out there, any woman that's at home knows exactly what I mean. We have to work
Dude, this
harder,
lady
and
is
that's a fact.
shaking.
There is
So I
something
wanna
so
dispel
wrong
one
with her.
thing,
Look at her head.
because for so long, why
She's
has this been
about to
happening?
explode.
I don't think you have to
It's
be
making
the
me
tallest
nervous.
person on this stage
This
to be
is a
president.
Scanners moment
I
here.
don't think you have to be the skinniest person. I don't think you have the loudest voice on the stage. I don't think that means that you will be the one that should be president. I think what matters is if you're smart, if you're competent,
She's
and if
about
you
to
get
cry.
things done. I am the one that has passed over 100 bills as the lead Democrat in that gridlock of Washington.
You can sort of like
in
hear it in her
Congress
voice,
on
like
this
she
stage.
is like about
I
to
think
cry,
you've
and
gotta
she's like,
win. And I am the one,
"Why is
Mr. Vice
nobody
President,
listening to me?
that has been able
I
to
have
win
passed
every
over
red and
100
purple
bills."
congressional district as the lead on a ticket every time. I govern both with my head and my heart. And if you think a woman can't beat Donald Trump, Nancy Pelosi does it every single day.
Mr. Vice President, just a quick response.
I think a woman's qualified to be president. There's no reason why, if you think the woman's the most qualified person now, you should vote for them. The reason why I think I should be president and be the nominee is, number one, I have brought people together my entire career. In the United States Senate, I've passed more major legislation than everybody on this
But all of
stage
your
combined.
fucking legislation was bullshit stuff that everybody hates now.
the chemical weapons treaty, to dealing with Milosevic, the whole range of things that I've been engaged in my whole career.
Oh, he took down Slobodan.
I brought people together. I'm always told by everybody out here,
I brought people together by leading an imperialist incursion in Eastern Europe.
Unify this country? We have to unify this country. I have done it. I have done it repeatedly. And lastly, to be commander-in-chief, there's no time for on-the-job training. I've spent more time in the Situation Room, more time abroad, more time than
has brought the country together multiple times.
I know every major world leader. They know me, and they know when I speak. If I'm
Why does it keep falling apart?
Who we're for, who we're against, and what we'll do, and we'll keep our word.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Ashley.
Senator Booker, one of the defining characteristics of the Trump presidency is that the American people hear from him directly all the time about everything, on Twitter and just about everywhere else. Setting aside your views of his tone, is that
This guy belongs in a fucking science classroom.
As president would continue? Is this one of the norms broken by President Trump that needed to change?
Oh, you can't say that. He's black. No, you just fucked us. We're fucking done.
Reptile.
Who's that?
Reptilian, not that. You're the racist one for implying that I would ever.
Who's the NRX candidate here? That's what I'm trying to figure out. My support of Trump was based on him being the accelerationist candidate. So I don't know. The only way that I could be swayed to the Democrats is if there was like somebody who would, way more hardcore. I don't know if Yang is really the accelerationist candidate.
Work together and fight together. So absolutely. When I was mayor
like who's gonna fucking
this is where
maybe it's Tom Steyer.
Blow this. Who's gonna blow this shit up? Who's gonna fucking go hardcore and like sell Detroit?
He's gonna blow everybody, man.
That you have to be an executive that can heal. In my city, we have racial divides.
Universal basic head.
Geographic divides that go from wealth to people that are struggling.
Cory Booker will go anywhere and suck your cock if you vote for him.
And did things that other
Yang is the guy who fucks your wife, but you're cool with it because he's so cool.
When I am president of the United States, my campaign from the very beginning has not changed.
Comment.
My charge is to see a nation right now which has so much common pain to channel that back into a sense of common purpose, and I will do whatever it takes, bringing creativity
Who is the NRX candidate?
like has never been seen before.
Thank you, Senator.
Who's Nick Land supporting in this election?
It has to be Yang, I guess.
Are still heard at President
Has anyone asked him?
Today. Now,
I haven't seen him make an official endorsement.
They've chanted "Lock him
All I've seen
at a recent World Series game in Washington
is now. Did you see that article about how accelerationism is the new alt-right?
Jesus, yes, I did.
That article is crazy.
What's your take on that?
This, or are you okay with it?
That was full of shit, and that it's just more coastal lib bullshit, pretending to be experts in things they just don't understand.
Country are catching on to the degree that this president thinks he is above the law. And what the American people are saying, nobody is above the law. And I think what the American people are also saying is, in fact, that if this president did break the law, he should be prosecuted.
Yang is
like
indirectly funded by Peter Thiel.
But at
Did
the
you
end
know that?
of the day, what
I'm really not surprised. He won't fund TekWars though, but he'll fund Andrew Yang. Peter Thiel is out there. He's funding like Rick and Morty.
Somebody raised him.
Funding the Weinsteins because he has a thing for fat Jewish men.
Reject that.
Do you remember that he was there was like some weird I feel like sometimes there's things that happen in this world that feel like total hallucinations to me, and like I'm not sure if they were really real. But for a while there was this like game show app kind of thing, and it was like this guy came out every day.
Yeah, and he killed himself.
Did what?
That guy killed himself.
Wait, are we talking about the same thing? Like it would be like ask questions and then
it was like a big
you could vote on your
game.
phone.
Yeah, and you could win money too.
Yeah, and it got split between whoever all the question answers. Whoever answered all the questions correctly, like regardless of how many people got it, they split the prize between them all. So if you won, you got like 50 cents or something. The host of that show fucking killed himself. Peter Thiel funded that show.
Would you support
HQ
a potential
trivia.
criminal investigation into President Trump after he leaves office, even if you thought it might further.
Oh, it's the founder of HQ Trivia, not the host.
Oh, not the guy from the
chief executive of Popular Game.
Independent judgment.
I wonder, like, why did Peter Thiel fund that? That's a really weird thing.
Exonerated.
I don't understand like why Peter Thiel supports the things that he does. Because he's not out there like funding BAP or like Sam Hyde or anybody.
Private attorney. And so I would,
but he like chooses to support HQ. Why is that?
Attorney General I supported, that I appointed, let
it's
them
not
make
like,
an independent
I don't know,
judgment.
It's that's really a good question. That's what they should be talking about.
In fact, criminally prosecuted, then so be it. But I would not direct it. And I don't think it's a good idea.
Yang is good friends with Eric Weinstein.
I don't think Thiel has a TekWar subscription, but Moldbug does.
We have to bring this country together. Let's start talking civilly to people and tweeting. The next president who starts tweeting should. Anyway,
I believe that.
It's about civility. We have to restore the soul of this country, and that's not who we are.
You tried to get him on the show before?
Yeah, I have.
Follow
he's like
the Justice Department make the
judgment just always says maybe. I think he said he wants to finish writing this current article series before he does.
The difference of opinion there with Vice President Biden.
Well, no, I think Joe is right. I think that it is the function of the Attorney General. But what I am of the opinion is that the American people now do believe, and the more they see these impeachment hearings on television, they do believe that we have a president who thinks he's above the law. We have a president who
Trump should just go full Nixon and just go full on when the president does it. It's not illegal.
He needs Steve
that was
Bannon.
Like Nixon is.
If he had Steve Bannon, he would
Nixon
have
was so. Nixon is our greatest president by a wide margin.
I feel
like the
Steve
more that
was
I've
like
learned
most
about
of his swag.
Nixon over the years, like no other president can compete with Nixon. Nixon was also like one of the only presidents who didn't like have affairs with people.
And should he be thrown out of office? That's one question. He's very close to.
Like compared to Trump, like JFK was like a total fucking degenerate.
Yeah.
And JFK like got his porno pictures that he took in the White House. He got them framed, and he had like the Secret Service take the pictures to like oversee them getting framed so they couldn't be copied.
Many Americans, childcare and paid family leave.
Lyndon Johnson would get his cock out at like any opportunity and just wave it around.
Lyndon Johnson
per child per year. That's more
Lyndon Johnson just like screwed hookers and shit all the time. Lyndon Johnson was just basically like
what would you do as president to ease
a mafia boss who became president.
There are only two countries in the
like
world
Lyndon,
that
like it's remarkable how dirty this shit is.
The United States of America.
I mean, like all politics is fundamentally.
That is the entire list, and we need to get off this list as soon as possible.
LBJ was so crazy because he actually, like, he straight up stole his Senate election with like a fake ballot box,
and it's breaking families' backs.
And they like basically caught him, and then he had the case closed at like a higher level so that he couldn't be.
By the time they're showing up to pre-K and kindergarten,
no one could take away his Senate seat.
Years behind. Studies have shown that 2/3 of our kids' educational outcomes are determined by what's happening to them at home. This is stress levels, number of words read to them as children, type of neighborhood, whether a parent has time to spend with them. So we need to have a freedom dividend in place from day one, $1,000 a month for every American adult, which would put
neighborhood.
in many cases $2,000 a month into families' pockets so that they can either pay for childcare or, if they want, stay home with the child. We should not be pushing everyone to leave the home and go to the workforce. Many parents see that trade-off and say,
I really wonder what the metrics are on like what people would spend UBI on, because I think that's ultimately the thing that would determine
no parent in the United
what
States is federally guaranteed
if UBI got passed or not.
Of paid leave when they have a new
would be
baby.
what corporations it benefits.
Man, I get me a Gucci belt every month
because you get your $1,000 and then you spend it at like Walmart or whatever. Like they must have a breakdown. They're doing like test UBI programs in like certain places. I think I've like read that
in Finland.
They did in like Finland. I think they read that they did in like Canada or something.
That we help people because it's just pointed out.
And they must be tracking like where people spend the money, and it's going to be those prices who get like super inflated. It's like that's why like healthcare and higher education is so expensive. I mean, because it's being disproportionately inflated because of like subsidization.
Going to pay for them. meticulously.
It wouldn't go to like.
That is really
They're going to run an experiment out in Ontario, but I think they shut it down.
Why did they shut it down?
I don't know the exact reasoning, but I know it took a lot of people who were on it by surprise.
And you're also going to see how I'm going to pay for it. And I think
so they must not be spending the money right. Look at how she's closing her eyes right now.
Increasing the debt.
This lady is whacked. She's whacked out. She's fucked up.
A bankrupt casino and really putting this country in a worse financial situation every single day. So yes, my plan is 3 months. I think that's good. I'd love to do more. As I've said before, I'd love to staple free diplomas under people's chairs. I just am not going to go for things, and this is not, I'm not talking about Senator Harris's plan here, but I'm talking about some of the other ideas that have been out there.
I find her mesmerizing when she's on the screen. I don't even know what to say because I'm just like worried that like she's gonna have like a nervous collapse.
We have an obligation as
Do you
a party,
guys remember in one of the
fiscally
elections, like 2012?
Yes, think big, but make sure we have people's backs
I think
and are honest
there
with
was
them
that
about what
female
we can pay
Republican
for.
candidate. What was her name?
Sending rich kids to college for free, which I don't support, to kicking.
I don't know. I don't remember her name, but I remember reading that she was like super high-strung, like hysterical woman syndrome.
Thank you, Senator. And Senator Harris, why 6 months?
God, I think I know who you're talking about. I can't remember the name.
Everybody, please visit my website.
But I seriously remember reading stories about how in between interviews and stuff she seemed to be like having a total like mental like nervous collapse
we
of
are
some
focused
kind.
on the challenges that are presented today and not trying to bring back yesterday to solve tomorrow. So on paid family leave, it is no longer the case in America that people are having children
She's
in
hot.
their 20s.
I don't even care.
People are having children in their 30s, often in their 40s, which means that these families and parents are often raising young children and taking care of their parents, which requires a lot of work, from traveling back and forth to the hospital to daycare to all of the activities that are required, much less the health care needs that are required. And what we are seeing in America today is the burden principally falls on women to do that work. And many women are having to make a very difficult choice, whether they're going to leave a profession for which they have a passion
Michelle
to care for
Bachmann
their family,
from Minnesota.
or whether they're going to give up a paycheck that is part of what that family relies on. So 6 months paid family leave is meant to and is designed to adjust to the reality of women's lives today. The reality also is that women are not paid equal for equal work in America. We passed the Equal Pay Act in 1963.
How do they still go with that line?
2019, and
Hasn't that like been
dollar,
debunked so many times?
Native American women 58 cents, Latinas 53
I feel like this is basic and you know MRA.
There's a whole
that's like basic Ben Shapiro
2012 MRA stuff, and they're still bringing it out and trying to make it into a thing.
To be resolved and addressed.
Thank you, Senator. Kristen?
Mr. Steyer, millions of working Americans are finding that housing has become unaffordable, especially in metropolitan areas. It is particularly acute in your home state of California and places like Los Angeles and San Francisco. Why are you the best person to fix this problem?
When you look at inequality in the United
States
of America,
he has bad teeth. He's not going to win.
You have to start with housing. Where you put
I feel like
your
this guy
head
has like
at
wild
night determines
secrets.
so many things.
You've like
about your life.
I'm
you've like
fixated
glommed
on
onto this guy for like
there's
no
something
reason.
about him.
For no reason.
How long it takes you to get to work.
What power does he have over
in California is as a result of policy. We have millions too few housing
I'm gonna
units.
look this guy
and
up.
that affects everybody in California. It starts with a homeless crisis.
He's not
that
blinking.
Goes all through the state. But it also includes skyrocketing
I'm not seeing him blink.
rents
He's still not
that
blinking.
affect every single working person
Look
in
at
the
him
state
go.
of California.
He hasn't blinked yet.
I understand exactly what needs to be done here, which is we need to change
He's literally
policy,
not blinking.
And we need to apply resources here to make sure
They had to cut away from him
literally
to
millions
hide the
of
fact that
units.
he's not blinking.
But the other thing that's going to be true about
there he
building
got.
these units is
Oh,
we're going to have to build them in a way
he was going on
that's
quite a streak
sustainable.
there.
That in fact,
I want like
how you build
toxicology
units
reports on all
where
these
people
guys.
live has a dramatic impact on climate and on sustainability. So we are going to have to direct dollars. We're going to have to
this is
change
the NRX
policy
candidate.
and make sure that the the localities and municipalities who've worked very hard to make sure that there are no new housing units.
Accelerationism is the new alt-right.
They have to change that, and we're going to have to force it, and then we're going to have to direct federal dollars to make sure that those units are affordable so that working people can live in places and not be spending 50% of their income on rent.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer. Senator Warren, I see your hand raised.
Yes. Think of it this way. Our housing problem in America is a problem on the supply side, and that means that the federal government stopped building new housing a long time ago, affordable housing. Also,
they build affordable housing in New York all the fucking time.
They're not building the little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that I grew up in, garage converted to be a bedroom for my
They're
three
always
brothers.
trying to
so I've got a plan
do affordable housing here. It doesn't really work.
New housing units in America. Those are
They
housing units
can't really get
for
it built.
working families,
My
for
experience
working
with this
poor,
is
for
they
the
can't really get it built
for seniors who want to age in place,
because
for people with
the project
disabilities,
management is
for
really
people
bad.
who are coming back from being incarcerated.
Yeah,
It's
construction
about
project
tenants'
management
rights.
is
One more piece.
like a fucking
Housing
gong
is
show.
how we build wealth in America. The federal
That's where a
government
lot
has
of the money
subsidized
goes. Like
the
that's where like
purchase of
millions.
housing
If you're
for
doing
decades for white
a project that's like
and
millions of
has said
dollars,
for black people,
and
you're cut out of the
the
deal.
affordable
That was
housing
known as
projects,
redlining. When I built a housing plan, it's
like
not
the
only
people
a housing
who
plan
are
about
farming
building
them
new
out to like
units,
the
it's a
contractors
housing
and the
plan
architects
about
and everything,
addressing
like
what
they're
is
really
wrong
shitty
about
at it.
government-sponsored discrimination,
And they have
how
like
we
really
need to
like
address
when
it,
you
and
actually
we
do it. Like
need
I
to
did
say
this
we're gonna reverse
at
it.
my fucking
Senator
job.
Booker?
Is
I'm so
you
grateful
get the
again,
form packet
as a mayor
and there's like a
who was a mayor
form
during
in
a
it that
recession, who was a
says,
mayor during a housing
are
crisis,
you
who started my career as
a minority-owned
tenants' rights
business,
lawyer.
woman-owned business?
This are all good points, but we're
And
not
they have like
talking
lots
about
of like
something that is going on all over America,
boxes
which
you
is
have to
gentrification.
tick. So
And
they
low-income families being moved
they try
further
to
and further
and
out,
they have like a
often
specific definition of like what it
compounding
means to be like a
racial
minority-owned
segregation.
business.
And so all
And
of
people
these
like
things, we need to
exploit
put
the
more
shit out of
federal
it.
dollars in but
And there's like
we've got to
scam
start empowering
contractor
people. We use our
firms
tax
in New
code
York.
Yeah,
wealth
yeah,
up. The
and a
more
lot of
tax
organized
deduction.
crime
My
stuff
plan is
too.
very simple. If you're a renter who pays more than a third of your income in rent, then you will get a refundable tax credit between the amount you're paying and the area median rent. That empowers people in the same way we empower homeowners. And what that does is
We
it
need Ron
actually
Paul on this
slashes
stage.
poverty, 10 million people out.
God, Booker
And
looks
by
like
the
a
way, for
ghoul.
those people who are
Jesus.
facing eviction, it is about time that the only people when they show up in rental
He looks
court
like something's
are the
puppeting
lawyers,
him.
not the
Like
landlord.
something's got his hand up their up his ass and
Families
like
struggling to stay in their
jerking
homes.
around.
Thank you, Senator
Oh, you know that
Rachel?
We're going
meme
to take a quick break, but we will be right back with these candidates
about,
from the MSNBC, Washington Post, Democratic candidates.
they have like
debate
an
in
alt-right
Atlanta, Georgia. Stay with us.
guy and he's the puppet, and then they have like a slime monster who's NRX who's like piloting the puppet. We need that with like Cory Booker.
Through the AT&T network, edge-to-edge
This
intelligence
stream is
gives you the
sponsored by
power to see
AT&T.
every corner of your growing business. From managing inventory to detecting and preventing threats.
I kind of want to put on Rudy from Alpha Investments
Scaling
during
up your
the
production,
commercial
giving you a
break,
nice
but
big edge
I don't want
over
to
your
mess up the
competition.
stream.
That's the power of edge-to-edge intelligence.
I feel like I'm betraying him by watching this.
Yeah, AT&T is our official sponsor
Welcome back
now.
to live coverage of the Washington Post MSNBC Democratic presidential debate. I'm Libby Casey, along with national political reporter Cleve Woodson and national
Why do they have to
political
take a
correspondent
break?
Dave Weigel.
Do they
Let's
get, like,
start
extra
with what's
injections?
standing out to you the most, Dave, in this first almost hour of the debate.
They got guys in white coats with like
somebody
syringes
read a
full of
review about the way
Adderall
candidates
solution and just
attack
like
each other?
stick
Not
them in the
much of
neck.
that.
Going full Hitler, like it's not even like needle and syringe. It's like an auto injector, like air injector, hypospray, like they use to treat smallpox, and they have the vials of methamphetamine, and they just go up to the candidates one by one on the break and just like right in the arm, like air shot the fucking stims right in there.
Didn't get a chance to get in. I thought of the candidates who we were talking about in the bubble. Lady Klobuchar, who has lines. If you're familiar,
Yeah, I wonder what they're all doing right
her
now.
with some of these lines about Nancy Pelosi beating Trump every day. Got to deliver them, I think, in the space and the time that she wanted, which is each debate she's been getting.
Who's winning?
Getting a little bit better at finding that space and occupying it.
I don't know. It's such a circus.
Yeah.
It sucks. It's so fucking boring. They're all fucking idiots. Nobody cares.
Quite high.
Like they're not talking about anything that actually Like,
like the words that they're saying like don't correspond to anything.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like there's no like hermeneutical like anchor of any kind to any sort of like actual substantive sentiment in anything that they're saying. Like I feel like it's just like listening to them is just like being in the sea. It's like being in the ocean and just being sort of moved around by the current, by the tide. That's like the mental feeling that I get from watching this.
What he thinks about prosperity and what he wants to do to not just, as he said, talk about taxation, but also generating wealth, Cleve.
Well, and I think one of the interesting things that I'm seeing early on is kind of this would be the worst name of a movie ever, but the Attack of the Moderates. You know, Cory Booker kind of recycled an Andrew Yang line from the last debate where he talks about other countries.
Oh, Rex, are you gonna go see the new Star Wars movie? We just need to like turn this into like the sci-fi.
And in doing that, he
honestly, I haven't seen any of them.
He also, he sort of
that's like hardcore.
Just goes at it.
Family leave,
I'm really into that.
Not seen talked about in these debates in this way. Candidates have brought it up and danced
Did
around
you get
the
a
edges,
Disney
but
Plus
we did see a contrast
subscription?
drawn between
I don't
two women
understand
candidates on
Disney
stage.
Plus at all.
Yeah, I don't know what it's.
Debt and fiscal responsibility, which is not.
I don't know what
because
the
it's all just
Mandalorian
like
is.
weird stuff of like all these really forgettable Disney movies of like what's that guy's name? Tim Allen starring in The Shaggy Dog.
That's how she responded. I think for people at home, obviously who are not hearing from
and
now,
it turned into such a big thing on like Twitter, and Disney Plus came out, and people were fucking going apeshit off that. And what are they doing? Are they just like seriously reacting like that, and then just going on there and watching Halloween Town 3? Like they returned to Caliban or whatever.
Halloween Town was good.
Is Cool World a Disney movie? Someone in the chat just said that Cool World is a Disney movie. There's no way that Cool World is a Disney movie.
MSNBC Washington Post Democratic candidates debate. Let's get right back into it. American farmers are struggling under the effects of President Trump's trade war with China. The Trump administration's payments to farmers to offset those losses already have a price tag that is more than double what was spent on the Obama
Do
administration's
you think there's any
auto bailout.
farmers watching this right now?
Mayor Buttigieg, would you continue those farm
The
subsidies?
Democratic debates.
We shouldn't have to pay farmers to take the edge off of a trade war that shouldn't
already
have
pay
been
farm
started in the
subsidies.
first place.
Who gives a
I
shit?
will support farmers, but not long ago, I was in Boone, Iowa. Guy came up to me. He said, I got my Trump bailout check, but I would have rather spent that money on conservation. By the way, this isn't even making farmers whole. If you're in soybeans, for example, you're getting killed. And it's not just what this president's done.
Trump is trying to
war in a lot of
destroy the
parts of
domestic
country.
soybean
The worst
industry
thing is these
to like
so-called small refinery
single-handedly
laborers, which
wipe
are
out
killing
veganism in
those
the
who are
United
involved in
States.
ethanol. Look,
American farm subsidies are totally fucking insane. Like they get money for not growing
take
anything.
one for the team, but more and more I'm talking to people in rural
Yeah,
America
someone should call them out for
who
going
see
against
that they're not going
FDR's
to benefit
policies
from
on farm
business as usual
subsidies.
under this president. I believe that so many of the solutions lie
Like,
with
we're already
American
fucked on
farmers, but
that.
we have to stand up for them, not just with direct
Like during the
subsidies
Great
and support,
Depression,
but with making sure we do something about
there
the
were cases of
consolidation,
like
the monopolies that leave
a
farmers
guy
with
just
fewer
growing
places to purchase supplies
extra
from
crops
and fewer
for
places
his
to
own
sell their
personal
product
use,
to.
and like the government had to like come and destroy them. And he like went to the Supreme Court.
I believe that the quest for the
And they ruled that,
carbon-negative
and then
farm could be
FDR
as
had
big
to
a symbol
pack
of
the
dealing
court
with
and add a
climate
bunch of new
change as the
justices.
electric car in this country. And it's an important part of how we make sure that we get a message out around dealing with climate change. that
Politicians
recruits
shouldn't be so
everybody
afraid
to be
of
part
some
the
of this stuff.
solution,
Like
including conservative communities where a lot of people have been made to feel
there was
that
talk
admitting
of
climate
Trump
science would mean acknowling they're
packing
part of
the
problem.
court.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I
He
need
should
you
just
to
like
answer the
add
question. Would you
3 more.
continue those subsidies or not?
Yes,
Yeah,
but we won't need them
need
'cause we're
to.
gonna fix the trade
Dude,
war.
they need to be way more extreme than that.
I don't know
than
what.
packing
Like
the
there's,
court. They need to
there's
like.
nothing like stopping him from doing that, is there?
He needs to get the CIA under his control to finally take out
Climate is also an
Ginsburg
issue important to
and get
our
someone else
audience.
up
We
there
received
on the
thousands
Supreme
of
Court.
questions from our viewers, and many of them were about climate. Callista from Minneapolis.
He needs to
writes
build
this.
his own CIA if he wants to survive.
Leading the world in
I
resolving
don't know
the
why
climate
he
crisis
doesn't.
will be a
Nixon understood this.
multi-decade
This is what
project,
Nixon literally
spanning
did.
far beyond even a 2-term presidency.
Have you
If
seen
you
the
are elected president,
Oliver Stone
how would
Nixon,
you ensure
Rex?
that there is secure leadership and bipartisan
No,
support
but it's
to
on the list.
continue this project? Congresswoman Gabbard.
That's a great movie. I
This is
recommend
an issue
that.
that impacts all of us as Americans, and people all over the world.
Have you seen the opera? Nixon Goes to China or whatever?
Yeah, I've watched a lot of it. I mean, I haven't seen the opera. It's like, I don't know, 4 hours long or whatever. But there's videos of it on YouTube, and it's the production is really funny, and it has like a huge Air Force One set prop, like descending on the opera hall, like on wires. It's pretty nuts. It's like, was it done by Philip Glass? That's not who composed that, but it's something like it's a very similar style to something like Philip Glass in terms of the music. But I don't remember who actually made it.
Bring about as president. Transitioning our country.
Do you like that opera, Rex?
Fossil fuels and ending the nearly $30 billion in subsidies that we as taxpayers are currently giving.
I don't really watch opera, but I thought it was pretty good.
Instead, investing in a green, renewable energy economy that leads us into the 21st century with good-paying jobs.
Do you think Tulsi would lead a revolt against the CIA?
And transitioning our agriculture.
I don't know if she's strong enough to do that.
Environmental threats we face. Towards an agriculture.
They had pictures of her dragging around that JFK book, didn't they?
Yeah. JFK and the Unspeakable. That was kind of crazy to me.
I'm surprised that Tulsi's not your girl. Confidant. You should be like mesmerized.
Well, the only
in love.
The problem with that book is that it's like very. JFK would have solved everything.
Changes that last, making changes that are permanent.
you don't like the angle of that one book.
But there is a lot of hardcore stuff in it about like the CIA. So I'm surprised that she was publicly reading that book.
Senator Warren won't say it. It's a state of emergency, and I would declare a state.
I don't know if she was trying to signal something or what.
I would use the emergency powers of the presidency.
Yeah, it like quotes Fletcher Prouty a ton.
A decade fighting and beating oil companies, stopping pipelines,
which is also interesting
because
the main thing that's used to discredit Fletcher Prouty is that he sold the publication rights of his book, The Secret Team, to like a right-wing publishing house.
As well.
And then he said that he didn't really care. He just wanted like the book to be put back into print, and he sold it to somebody. He didn't really understand what they were about.
Climate policy was led by environmental justice and members of the communities where this society has chosen to put our air and water pollution, which are low-income black and brown communities. And when we ask, how are we going to pull this country together? How about this? We take on the biggest challenge in history.
Black and brown.
We save the world, and we do it together. Do you think that would pull America together?
What Norman Mailer book? Someone says that Assange had a Norman Mailer book he was carrying around.
Threat to humanity. It's the #1 issue. And I might add, I don't really need kind of a lecture from my friend. While I was passing the first climate change bill, and that PolitiFact said was
is he pissed?
While I managed the $90 billion
he does look pissed.
Recovery plan, investing more money.
It's so hard to like understand what their actual emotions are.
Than any time we've ever done it. My friend was producing more.
It's like the camouflage that they used to have for ships. Dazzle. I feel like their faces are really heavily camouflaged in some weird way. Like it's hard to know what they're actually feeling in these moments.
Let's get this straight. I think it is the existential threat of all time.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You may respond, Mr. Steyer.
What I'm really interested what book Assange had. Was it Harlot's Ghost?
Climate was the absolute.
Have you heard of that one, Rex? That's like Norman Mailer's like novel about
this one's new to me.
Fossil fuels.
It's actually like
has lived in an economy
it's pretty good.
Fossil fuels,
it was based on it was the basis for the Robert De Niro movie that he made.
If we're waiting for Congress
about the CIA, Good Shepherd.
I know everybody on this stage cares about this, but Congress has never passed an important climate bill ever. This is a problem which continues to get worse. That's why I'm saying it's a state of emergency. That's why I'm saying it's priority one. If it isn't priority one, it's not going to get done. And this is something where we absolutely have to address it up front. We have to make it the most important thing, and we can use it to rebuild.
Is Tulsi the only candidate so far who's dropped knowledge on the military-industrial complex?
while we clean up our air and water and create millions of good-paying jobs.
Senator Sanders, I'm going to ask you to jump in here.
I was also named in that.
Tom, you stated
you were.
You talked about the need to make climate change.
Didn't they have like an 8-hour-long, like, or 16-hour-long or some shit climate debate that nobody watched?
With the thrust of the original question, because your question has said, "What are we going to do in decades?"
I don't even know.
We don't have decades. What the scientists are
This is what I don't understand about Bernie. Is that I like read the actual Green New Deal thing, and a lot of it doesn't is just like hand wavy. Like he says, like we need to get rid of all planes by like 2030, and it's like how are we going to do that? And then he says we're going to invest $200 million in research into like
UFOs.
Yeah, like he doesn't even say like into what. Like we're going to invest $200 million into research to like find out how not to have planes.
That their short-term profits
like what is he researching? Like ion propulsion planes?
And by the way,
Element 115.
industry is probably criminally liable.
Who is that guy, Rex, that worked in Area 51 and then he like
when they had the evidence
started going off about the secret projects?
That's Bob
you mean
Lazar.
Bob Lazar?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he claimed to have element 115.
Yeah, he claimed
that, but it was actually some kind of emulsifier. It's in Valet's book, Forbidden Science 4. It's quite interesting.
Nuclear deal, and at times embracing Vladimir Putin.
Was he? Did he turn out to be a scammer?
Talk about what kind of commander-in-chief
It's not known, I don't think.
Honestly, my personal opinion is that he's either a scammer or he's disinformation.
Not make concessions on nuclear weapons. If you were commander-in-chief,
Like a lot of the stuff they're pushing on Rogan right now, it's pretty shady.
Oh yeah, was Bob Lazar just on Rogan?
Yeah.
Were you just talking about her?
Yeah. What do you think, Rex, of the did you see the Commander David Fravor? That one, or those videos that Tucker likes to show. What do you think about those?
There's issues with the videos. Like they frankly look a lot like normal FLIR artifacts or stuff. But like Fravor could easily be making it all up.
Yeah.
And to do it in a way.
The same with the rest of the guys too.
Part of the strength of who we
I don't
are
know.
as a nation, and therefore an extension of
See
our
on that
ability
one.
to be secure, is not only that we have a vibrant military, but that when we walk in any room around the globe, we are respected because we keep to our word, we are consistent, we speak truth, and we are loyal. What Donald Trump has done, from pulling out of the Paris Agreement to pulling
She
out
looks
of
good.
the
I mean, she has like
Iran
some
nuclear
neck thing going on.
consistently turning a back on people who have stood with us in difficult times.
That skin on her
most
neck
recently
is
the
what her whole
Kurds.
face looks like, but
Points
it's
out
just
that Donald
covered in
Trump is the greatest
makeup
threat
and
to the national security
pulled
of
back
our
with
nation at this
Botox
moment.
and
Would
shit.
you make concessions to North Korea to keep talks
Not
going?
at this point.
I bet her
There are no
hands are, like,
concessions to be made.
super
He has
pruned.
traded a photo op for nothing. He has abandoned by shutting down the operations with South Korea for the last year and a half. So those operations, which should be, and those exercises, which should be active, because they are in our best national security, the relationship that we
Is
have
she
with
literally
Japan,
out here
he has
supporting
in every way
military
compromised our
drills
ability to have any
in like the
influence
South China
on
Sea against like
slowing
North
down,
Korea,
or at least having a check
and saying
balance
like
on
we
North
need to do
Korea's
this shit?
nuclear program.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Vice President.
I'm sort of into like the Metal Gear Solid mode of like giving all countries nuclear weapons.
What would a president
Like I think
Biden do
Kojima
that
is like
President
ahead of
Obama
his time in that.
Well, first of all, I'd go back and making
Or
sure
what does Kojima want to do?
we had before
He all the weapons in the world get shut down.
Ostracized us from South
I
Korea.
don't know.
He has
Yeah, we
given
need some
North
like
Korea everything they
lore
want,
experts and
creating the
Metal Gear
legitimacy
Solid lore
by
experts in
having
the
a
chat.
meeting with Kim Jong-un, who's a thug, although he points out that I'm a rabid dog, need to be beaten with a stick. But recently was his comment.
Other than that, you like him.
Other than that, I like him. And uniting Japan and Australia and being a Pacific power and putting pressure on China in order for them to make sure that it is a nuclear-free peninsula. And the way
I can't believe that guy
is
from
we
The
make clear
Office
to China,
is like
which I have
sucking
done
CIA
personally
cock.
with the
That was
president of
such a
China,
funny tweet.
and that is we're going to move up our
I can't
defenses.
even like.
We're going to continue to make
How
sure
did
You better thank your lucky fucking stars.
How did he get away with saying
and if
that?
they view that as a threat, it's an easy thing to respond to.
Did
They,
you see
in fact,
that,
can, in fact,
Rex,
put
the guy from The
pressure
Office?
on North Korea.
Who's playing
But
Jack
the fact
Ryan?
is that we're in a position where he has done this across the world.
Tom Clancy.
I did.
Embrace
It was pretty
thugs. Look
wild.
what Putin is doing in Europe. Putin is his whole effort is to break up NATO, to increase his power. Look what he's done to it. And so this guy has no idea what he's doing. He has no notion how to go about it. And we need a commander-in-chief when he stands, everybody knows what he or she is talking.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. 2 more U.S. soldiers were killed today in Afghanistan, tragically, in America's longest war. Senator Sanders, you've long said you want to bring the troops back home from
this is
Afghanistan.
interesting.
Would you cut a deal with the Taliban to end the war, even if it means the collapse of the Afghan government that America has long supported?
I can't believe that Trump didn't get his Taliban deal.
One of the big differences between the Vice President and myself is he supported the terrible war in Iraq, and I helped lead the opposition against it.
Biden's just smiling like he doesn't give a shit.
I voted against the very
He's
first
like Robert
Gulf War
McNamara's,
as well.
yes, I did.
And I think we need a foreign policy which understands who our enemies are, that we don't have to spend more money on the military than the next 10 nations combined. But to answer your question, yeah, I think it is time, after spending many trillions of dollars on these endless wars, which have resulted in more dislocation and mass migrations and pain in that region, it is time to bring our troops home. But unlike Trump, I will not do it through a tweet at 3 o'clock in the morning. I will do it working with the international community, and if it's necessary to negotiate with the Taliban, of course, we will do that.
Oh.
But at the end of the day,
That's
we have
fucked
to
up.
rethink the
He's gonna
entire
get
war on terror,
his ass blasted
which has
for.
caused so
He's gonna
much
make a
pain
deal with the
and
Taliban.
lost so many lives,
Holy
not only
shit.
for our own men and women in the armed forces, but for people in that region as well.
Thank you, Senator. Ashley?
Thank you. Mr. Yang, if you win the 2020 election, what would you say in your first call with Russian President Vladimir Putin?
It's a fun moment. Well, first I'd say I'm sorry.
Sometimes I think that like Putin probably likes seeing American politics, and then like he enjoys it on the level of like seeing his opponents like flail around and humiliate themselves.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like a part of Putin probably feels sad, like seeing all the shit. Like someone was saying
It's like seeing
today
like a
that
retarded puppy.
Mayor Pete's going to win because it's going to be a big deal if he takes his husband to go to Russia to meet Putin. And that would be like a huge own, so that people are going to want to see that happen.
We're going to live up to our international commitments. We're going to recommit to our partnerships and alliances.
But I wonder if like
including
Putin
NATO.
sees that sort of thing and just feels like kind of sad that like the American president gets elected because he's a gay guy and he's going to come over and own Putin.
Not just against
Like,
Russia,
that must be like depressing that you had a great adversary in the United States and then they just took it all away.
And what's going on in Hong
And
Kong.
now they
I
have
want to
Andrew
propose a
Yang.
new world data organization, like a WTO for data.
It's like if it was like
because right
Batman
now,
and Joker,
unfortunately, we're
but
living in a world where data is
Batman.
the new oil and we don't have our arms around it.
Actually, I don't know which one would
actually
be.
get Russia to the table and make it so they have
It's
to
like if
join the
Batman
international
just started
community
playing with
and
butterflies.
stop, resisting appeals to the world order.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Rachel?
He didn't handle that
On the
one
issue
very well.
of China, Senator Booker, China is now using force against demonstrators in Hong Kong, where millions have taken to the streets advocating for democratic reforms. Many of the demonstrators are asking the United States for help. If you were president, would the
Their
U.S.
facial
help their movement?
signals
and
are
how?
so confused.
Well, first of all,
Like,
this is a president.
His eyes
who
go
seems
in
to wanna
different
go against
directions like a
China,
gecko.
in a trade war by pulling away from our allies and, in fact, attacking them as well. We use a national security waiver to put tariffs on Canada. And so at the very time that China is breaking international rules, is practicing unfair practices, stealing technology, forcing technology transfer, and violating human rights, this nation is pulling away from critical allies we would need to show strength against China.
Yeah, we need
There's
Canada
a larger
to
battle
go
going
take
on
out
the
China
planet
for
Earth
us.
right now between totalitarian dictatorial countries and free democracies. And we see the scorecard under this president.
How does America
looking
not
so
count as
good.
a totalitarian
China actually
country?
shifting more towards an authoritarian government.
I feel like that's why
with its
like
leader now getting rid of
America
getting rid of
has come to
term limits.
dominate the world
And
is
so
because
I
our
believe
version
we
of
need a much stronger
totalitarianism is like
policy,
the
one
most
that's not led,
insidious.
as President Trump seems to
Isn't
want
that
to do,
Moldbug's
in a transactional
entire
way, but one that's led
contention?
by American
Yeah, it's like a
Yes,
soft
we will
totalitarianism.
hold China out for its human rights violations.
it's
but not
crypto
only that,
totalitarianism.
We will stop engaging in things that violate American rights. Because it is a human rights violation when people
Like they have their social credit score, okay,
it's a
but
human rights violation.
I feel like we have basically the same system over here, but instead like a bunch of people yell at you on the internet and get you fired from your job instead of like the government doing it.
It is about time that this country is led by someone who will say the values of freedom and democracy are what we are going to lead with.
Is he saying that Obama didn't
check Putin and the other folks that are trying
do
to
that?
undermine American
He's saying it's
values
about time
and
that we did this,
democratic
but
values around the globe.
Thank you, Senator. Andrea.
Mr. Vice
I mean,
President,
did Obama
the
not do that when he was in
CIA has concluded
office?
that the leader of Saudi Arabia directed the murder of U.S.-based journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The State Department also
What's
says
his name,
the Saudi
Jamal
government is
Khashoggi?
responsible for executing nonviolent offenders and for torture. President Trump has not punished senior Saudi leaders.
George Lucas apparently edited
Khashoggi was in fact
Greedo saying
murdered
some
and
new shit in
dismembered.
Star Wars, the original Star Wars, and he has like Greedo, and Greedo's like now says like McChunky or something. Like, what the fuck?
We were going to in fact make them pay
George
the
Lucas
price
is actually
and
like
make them in fact the pariah
so great.
that they are. There's
Yeah,
very
he
little
should
social
sponsor us. I
redeeming
feel
He
like
should
he
really
would like
just
TekWars.
come out
present,
and just shit on
government
like
in
Star
Saudi
Wars.
And I would also, as pointed out,
They
I
probably
would
paid
end-
him not to.
end the
They're
subsidies
definitely
that we
paying
have
him not
and
to.
the
I mean, he's
sale of
definitely under like
material
some sort
to the
of
Saudis, so
non-disclosure
they're going in
agreement.
and
Yeah.
murdering children and they're murdering innocent people.
But I
And
feel
so
like
they
George
have to be
Lucas
held
like hates
accountable.
Star Wars
And with
more than
regard to
any other
China,
person in the
we
world.
should, look,
And
unless
then he should just come
make
out
it
and like
clear that we stand
completely
for
shit on it.
human rights. We should be going to the United
I
Nations.
feel like
seeking
everyone who's involved in like
condemnation of China,
Star
what they're
Wars like
doing
hates
with
Star
a
Wars.
million Uyghurs
Well, yeah,
that
imagine
are
like
essentially
making
in
something
concentration
George
camps in
like
the
so
West.
beautiful and
Hates
crafted
Star Wars.
something,
Locally speaking
and then
out
something.
Mark
the
Hamill like
violation of the
hates Star
commitment they
Wars.
made to Hong
I think
Kong.
now even like
We have to
C-3PO is
speak
like
out
doing
and
interviews
speak
like
loudly
shitting on
about
Star Wars.
violations of human rights.
Senator
can see it.
Klobuchar, just to follow up, would you go against the Saudis, even though that would potentially help Iran, their adversaries?
We need a new foreign policy in this country, and that means renewing our relationships with our allies. It means rejoining international agreements, and it means reasserting.
So at the end of the
American
debate, and they're gonna
values.
like say,
and so
afterwards they're going to say in the media, each media outlet's going to say who won or whatever. But how what are we basing that on?
That sent a signal to all dictators across the country, that across the world, that was okay, and that's wrong. And I want to add a few things to what my colleagues have said. First of all, the question about Russia. When we look at international agreements, we must start negotiating.
She's like the Angela
with
Merkel
Russia, which has been a horrible
of
player
the
on the
stage.
international scene. But the president precipitously got out
Has
of the
Angela
nuclear
Merkel
agreement with
been
Russia,
chancellor
and we must start
of Germany now
negotiating,
longer
even
than
though
like
they were cheating,
anyone else?
for
Like she's
the
definitely
good of this
been
world. And we must also start
longer
the
than Hitler.
negotiations for the New START treaty. And when it comes to China,
That's true.
we need someone that sees the long term, like I do, just like the Chinese do, because we have a president that literally makes
we
decisions
need
based
Dune.
on his
We need
next
God
tweet,
Emperor of
and
Dune
they are in
to
it
like
for the
plot out the
long
long
game.
term for
Senator
us.
Sanders?
I think I may have been the first person up here.
When are we going to
make
get a
it
God
clear
Emperor of Dune
that Saudi Arabia
reference
not
on
only
the Democratic
murdered
debate stage?
Khashoggi, but this is a brutal dictatorship which does everything it can to crush democracy, treats women as third-class citizens. And when we rethink our American foreign policy, what we have got to know is that Saudi Arabia is not a reliable ally. We have got to bring Iran and Saudi Arabia together in a room under American leadership and say we are sick and tired of us spending huge amounts of money.
He loves to
and
do the
human
double.
resources
He loves to do the
because of
double
your
hand
conquest.
gesture
And
like
by the
that.
way,
That's
the
his
same
big
thing
thing.
goes with Israel
He
and
loves
the
to stick out
Palestinians.
both hands.
It is no longer good enough for us simply to be pro-Israel. I am pro-Israel. But we must treat the Palestinian people as well with the respect and dignity that they deserve.
I feel like he seems to have kind of a spittle issue.
Where youth unemployment is 70
Oh yeah, if you were
80%
interviewing him,
is
you would get like
unsustainable.
his
So we need
lunch
to be
all over your
rethinking
face.
Who our allies are around the world. Work
just
with
be
the United
flying.
Nations.
He has a very
and not
wet
continue to
kind of thing going on in the way that he sounds. Like I can.
Senator Warren, only about 1% of Americans serve in the United States military right now. Should that number be higher?
Yes, I think it should be. You know,
Holy
three of
shit.
my brothers served in the military. One was career
Based.
military. The other two also
Let's get
served.
those numbers up to 100%.
Part of who we
McNamara's
are
morons.
as Americans. And I think the notion of shared service is important. It's how we help.
And that
build
morons
our nation
thing was a
together.
fucked up
it's
book.
How people learn.
Yeah,
to
that's
work together
absolutely
from different regions. People who grew
such a
up
weird
differently.
chapter of the Vietnam
It's
War
also
that nobody
about how
talks about was that
families
Robert
share that
McNamara
sacrifice. I remember
wanted
what
to
it was like
recruit,
when I
or
was
he
a
did
little girl. My
recruit
brother,
100,000
my oldest
low
brother,
IQ
who served
soldiers
5.5 years
because there were
off
so many
non-combat in
deferments that people
Vietnam.
could get
And
to
what it
not
was
be in
like for my
Vietnam.
mother every day to check the mailbox.
And people were like doing whatever they
hadn't heard
could
from
not.
Don
So
Reed.
they needed
How's
the
he
troops. So
doing?
the
And if there was a
McNamara
letter,
just
she
decided
was
that
brighter than the day.
he was going to
And
take
if
like
it
100,000 like
wasn't, she'd say,
low
"Well,
IQ
maybe
like
tomorrow."
retard troops.
This is about building for
Fuck.
our entire
That's what like
nation.
Forrest Gump
And
is
I
actually
believe we should
about.
do
Like
that. I also
Forrest Gump
believe we
never
should
made
have
sense
other
to me
service
until
Until
I
you saw Fog of War.
No,
for
until I was
example,
reading about
what I wanna
McNamara's
do is for our
morons.
federal lands. I want to bring in 10,000 people who want to be able to serve in our federal lands, to be able to help rebuild our national forests and national parks as a way to express both their public service and their commitment to fighting back
TARD
against
regiment,
climate
yeah.
change. We can do this as a nation.
Thank you, Senator. In President Trump's first 2 years in office, the Pentagon budget ballooned. Mayor Buttigieg, would you cut military spending or would you keep it on the same upward trajectory?
We need to reprioritize our budget as a whole.
We
and our
need to
military spending in
reprioritize.
particular. It's not just how much, although we certainly need to look at the runaway growth in military spending. It's also where. Right now, we are spending a fraction of the intention and resources on things like the artificial intelligence research that China is doing right now. If we fall behind on artificial intelligence, the most expensive ships that the United States is building just turn into bigger targets. We do not have a 21st century security strategy coming from this president. After all,
This is the
he's
accelerationist
relying on
candidate. This is the guy who's going to make Skynet.
Technologies like a boat full of alligators or a
This
big
is
wall.
like the true
There is
CIA.
no
This is like how we're
strategic
tying it all together.
planning for how
Pete
civilian, diplomatic,
Buttigieg
and
just
military security work
advocated
needs to take
building
place for the
Skynet.
future.
Can I respond?
Mayor Buttigieg, thank you.
Yeah, that just happened live.
Coming up, we will have much more from the candidates. We're going to take a quick break. Just a moment. Stay with us.
Through the AT&T network, edge-to-edge intelligence gives you the power.
I wonder
to
when they're
see
going
every
to
corner
roll
of
out the
your
railguns. Every couple of years, I check in on the railgun development.
They're getting closer, but like rail erosion's a big problem, especially because they're at sea and you get all that salt water and that shit, and that's really nasty.
Edge over your competition.
Yeah, the prototype videos that they have.
Yeah, they got prototypes.
But they've like
coverage of the Washington Post,
succeeded in like
Democratic
bringing it
presidential
down a
debate.
lot, and
I'm
like
Libby Casey, alongside Cleve Woodson
they've
and
gone
Dave
through a lot of
Weigel.
versions
Foreign
at this
policy
point.
dominating a lot of
Although they decided that the hypersonic projectile for the 5-inch gun could do a lot of what it did. So
he would treat Saudi Arabia like a pariah state was new. That is not a position any president, any modern.
Other thing is that it needs to be based on something like the Zumwalt,
and
and
it was one of those
that
moments
thing's
where
kind of
moderators have a tough job. You kind of wish everyone got a version
some
of
fuck
that.
up at this point, but yeah, they can't really retrofit it onto existing ships.
That provided some
because it needs
clarity.
a lot of power.
A little bit of dodging, and I mean, I think Pablum we're not going to remember. Some other aspects of foreign policy. I didn't hear a lot that was new apart from the Saudi Arabia thing.
How about you, Cleve?
Yeah, well, one thing in particular with Biden, he's tried to put, and Dave mentioned this a little bit earlier, put himself up as foreign policy.
What I always used to like watching the videos on like History Channel, like way back in the day when they had like future weapons, and I feel like none of that shit has come through. Like I remember they had some shit that was
opponents going after a weakness.
Military also came up at the end, an interesting
mag guns.
to ask Pete Buttigieg, of course.
Oh, you mean like
shit. The spending, and he did.
And they had like whole things of like
and
batteries of like mag guns of like thousands of them like all stacked together that would like eviscerate.
The stackable gun thing. I can't remember the Metal Storm.
Yeah, Metal Storm.
I don't know what happened to that.
Why don't we have Metal Storm
I think the company went out of business. I think.
That's something I think should be followed up on, because Buttigieg talks about a lot about serving in the military, but Warren kind of took the answer he usually gives about the bonds and the togetherness that's national service creates. So you could tell looking. I'm trying not to be a theater critic, but you could tell looking at Buttigieg that it was somebody else got the homework he was ready to fill in.
Like a lot of those shows were straight up propaganda. Like
they were just like
so much.
Like
they were
advertisements.
Terribly new.
For like Discovery Wings and stuff, they used to do always like the top 10 tanks or whatever. But the weird thing is that show had different conclusions based on what version it was. Like the American one would always have American stuff first, or Israeli stuff first. But like if it was like for international broadcast, it would be like, oh, the Challenger 2 is the best tank.
Standing out to you that felt new to you.
I really don't know what the hell is going on.
One of the things that's kind of new is that
future weapons never delivered.
Amy Klobuchar's kind of landing her jokes.
I guess looking back on that now, we can finally, years on, we can take a step back and look at the History Channel predictions on the future weapon technology, and there's no
I don't think they caught on to the laser thing at all. Like lasers, really, in the last decade, they really took off.
Harris earlier in the debate, but you are seeing them.
You know what I was seeing that in Hong Kong that a lot of the protesters, or maybe it was in South America. It was in Bolivia.
Yeah.
They were using lasers to
blind them.
Yeah.
Like they started doing that in like Egypt and Turkey, and I guess it's spread all over the place. Like you don't really want to get hit in the eye with a laser pointer. That would suck.
What are you, pussy? You can't take it?
Man, it stings like a bitch.
Let's move now to the issue of race in America. FBI Director Christopher Wray recently told Congress, quote, "The majority of the domestic terrorism cases that we've investigated are motivated by white supremacist violence."
No, they're all started by the FBI.
As president, would you direct the federal government to do something about this problem that it is not currently doing?
Yes, I would. We have seen for far too long the
I like how they're definitely giving her that
Okay,
question.
here we go.
Divisiveness and attacks that have unfortunately taken the lives of our fellow Americans. Leadership starts at the top. It's important that we set the record straight and correct the racial injustices that exist in a very institutional way in our country, beginning with things that have to do with our criminal justice system, where predominantly the failed war on drugs that has been continuing to be waged in this country has disproportionately impacted people of color and people in poverty. This is something that I'll do as president and commander.
So she's going to fight white supremacist terrorism by freeing black prisoners.
Working in a bipartisan way to do things like end the failed war
on drugs, Charles Manson
end
wanted
the
to
money
do.
bail system, enact
That
the
was
kinds of prison
helter-skelter.
reforms and sentencing reforms that we need to see that will correct the failures of the past. The most important thing here is that we recognize that we have to treat each other with respect. All of us as fellow Americans, regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, gender, orientation, and our politics. That kind of leadership starts at the top. As president, I will usher in a 21st century White House that actually represents the interests of all Americans.
She has not answered the question
Congresswoman
at all.
Gabbard, thank you for that. Mr. Yang, what would you do about
That was
the
a
issue of
swipe
white
at her that
supremacist
they gave her that
violence?
question.
Well, first we have to designate white supremacist terrorism as
They're
domestic
asking
terrorism
Yang and
so that the
Gabbard
Department of Justice can properly measure it.
about the alt-right.
I talked to an anti-hate activist named Christian Picciolini who told me about how he was radicalized over a 10-year period. He said he was a lonely 14-year-old and that he was reached out to by a hate group and he wound up joining it for a decade. Now he's out and he's helping
convert people out of those hate groups and back into the rest of society. But what he told me was that if anyone had reached out to him when he was that hurt, broken 14-year-old boy, he would have gone with them. He said if it had been a coach, I would have gone with him. If it had been a mentor or teacher, I would have gone with them. But instead, it was a hate group. So what we have to do is we have to get into the roots of our communities and create paths forward for men in particular who right now are falling through the cracks.
Oh, the MRA
and when you look
candidate
at gun
here.
violence in this country, 96+% of the shooters we're talking about are young boys and young men. We have to, as a country, start finding ways to turn our boys into healthy, strong young men who do not hate, but instead feel
So
like
is
they
he
have
going to
paths
end
forward
the solitary
in today's
confinement
economy.
cages at the
Mr. Yang,
schools?
thank you for that. Vice President Biden, the Me Too
Very
movement
tepid
has
response
forced
there
a
from the
cultural
audience.
reckoning around the issue
Yeah,
of
there was like
sexual
10
violence
people.
Not having any
and
kind of
harassment
empathetic
against women in America.
approach to
Are there specific actions that
to
you
the
would take
shooters.
early in your administration to address this problem?
Yes, and by the way, it's one of the reasons, the first thing I would do is make sure we pass the Violence Against Women Act reauthorization, which I wrote. The fact, I didn't write the reauthorization, I wrote the original act. The fact is that what happens now is that we, in fact, have to fundamentally change the culture of how women are treated. That's why, as vice president, when I asked the president, I could start
hyper-trad
the
Biden.
movement on the college campuses to say it's on us.
Women
It's
are going to
everyone's
be put into
responsibility.
chastity,
We do not spend nearly enough time.
forced chastity for all women,
When I
reaffirming.
did a virtual town meeting that told me
He's going to go
30,000
full Mike Pence.
people on the call, young people between
Men and
15
women cannot be in the same room together.
And found out, I said, what do you need? What do you need to make you safer on college campuses and on your schools? You know what they said? Get men involved. Engage the rest of the community. And that's what we
Wasn't that
started
like a
this
huge
movement
disaster
on
for
college
Obama,
campuses to
though?
fundamentally
Was his
change
college
the
rules
culture.
about
No
sexual
man
assault cases?
has a right to
And then it
raise
just
a
led to,
hand a
like,
woman
Rolling
in
Stones.
anger other than in
Or
self-defense,
Girl.
and that's rarely ever
That
occurs.
Rolling Stone
And so we
article
have to
about
just
the
change
liar,
culture, period.
the
And
girl who
keep
lied about
punching
being
at
raped
it,
at a
and
frat
punching
party.
and
Did you see
punching
her
at it. It will be
recent
a
thing?
big no, I really mean it.
What was her name, Jackie?
It's a gigantic
Yeah,
issue.
What was her
Yes,
name?
Jackie Crockley.
What happened? Was there another development?
She came out talking about how she's like with some Chad or something. And like,
Oh, no, that's Emma Selkowitz.
Oh, fuck.
Mattress Girl.
This week,
Yeah, no, I'm thinking of the
Yeah, I honestly think the fucking dork web is going to try to get her on as some kind of writer or some shit. What duplicitous bastards they are. Seriously.
Connecting with all of who we are as
She
the
did
diversity
just like
of
straight up
the
did
American
porn
people,
at one
end
point.
quote.
Like she did like an art project, quote unquote art
did.
project.
And then she got whipped in
Asked
public.
a question that related to a stock photograph.
Yeah, she like recreated her rape like on camera, and it was just like porno.
Listen, I think that
Jesus
the-
Christ.
Of just like
It wasn't
some
just
guy-
that, but like that Chad guy she was dating. Like, if you go to her Twitter account, she shit all over his dick game. Like, what the fuck?
The larger issue is that for too long, I think candidates have taken for granted constituencies that have been the backbone of the Democratic Party and have overlooked
How black
those
is she?
constituencies. And have,
What's the
they show
official
up when it's, close to election time and show up in a black
heredity
church
test on that.
and
What
want to get the
percentage?
vote, but just haven't been there before. I mean, there are plenty of people who applauded black women for the success of the 2018 election, applauded black women for the election of a senator from Alabama.
What cup size is she?
But, at some point, folks get tired of just saying, oh, thank me for showing up, and say, well, show up for me. Because when black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth in America, when the sons of black women will die because of gun violence more than any other cause of death, when black women make
she's,
61
like, hotter than
cents on
Tulsi. I
the
don't really
dollar
care.
as compared to all women who tragically make 80 cents on the dollar, the question has to be, where you been and what are you gonna do?
Is this the second time she's going to the pay gap?
Oh God, look at Bernie's face.
And I'm running for president because I believe that we have to have leadership in this country who has worked with and have the experience of working with all folks. And we've got to recreate the Obama coalition to win. And that means about women, that's people of color, that's our LGBTQ community, that's working people, that's our labor unions. But that is how we are going to win this election, and I intend to win.
Senator Harris, thank you. Mayor Buttigieg, your response to that?
My response is I completely agree. And
I'm gay, I'm the homo, so I get
with black
the bonus
voters in
points.
America who don't yet know me. And before I share what's in my plans, let me talk about what's in my heart and why this is so important. As mayor of a city that is racially diverse and largely low income, for 8 years I have lived and breathed the successes and struggles of the community where far too many people live with the consequences of racial inequity that has built up over centuries but been compounded by policies and decisions from within living memory. I care about this because my faith teaches me that salvation has to do with how I make myself useful to those who have been excluded, marginalized, and cast aside and oppressed in society. And I care about this because while I do not have the experience of ever having been discriminated against because of the color of my skin, I do have the experience of sometimes feeling like a stranger in my own country, turning on the news and seeing my own rights come up for debate, and seeing my rights expanded by a coalition of people like me and people not at all like me, working side by side, shoulder to shoulder, making it possible for me to be standing here wearing this wedding ring in a way that couldn't have happened 2 elections ago, lets me know just how deep my obligation is to help those whose rights are on the line every day, even if they are nothing like me in their experience.
Mayor Buttigieg, thank you very much. Senator Harris, quick response.
Look, there's a lot at stake in this election. And I've said it many times, I think justice is on the ballot in 2020. And it's about economic justice, it's about justice for children, it's about justice for our teachers. I could go on down the list. And so the issue really is not what is the fight. The issue has to be how we're going to win. And to win, we have to build a coalition and rebuild.
So they're just talking about whether or not it's better to be black or gay.
That's the last time we won. And the way that election looked and what that coalition looked like was it was about having a leader who had worked in many communities, knows those communities, and has the ability to bring people together. And everyone is going to have to be judged on their experience and therefore ability to bring folks together around our commonalities, of which I believe there are many.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Warren, quickly.
So I think it is really important that we actually talk about what we're willing to get in the fight for. And I just want to give one example around this. Senator Harris rightly raised the question of economic justice. Let me give a specific example, and that is student loan debt. Right now in America,
how is she connecting that to student loan debt
are more likely
at
to
all?
borrow money to go to college, borrow more money while they're in college, and have a harder time paying that
This
debt
is like a
off
complete
after
non
they get
sequitur.
out. Today in America, a new study came out, 20 years out. Whites who borrowed money, 94% of them have paid off their student loan debt. 5% of African Americans have paid it off. I believe that means everyone on this stage should be embracing
Which of the
student
candidates are
loan
doing
debt forgiveness.
November?
It will help close the black-white wealth gap. Let's do something tangible and real to make change in this country.
Senator Warren, thank you. Ashley.
Senator Warren, back to you. You said that President Trump has proposed is, quote, a monument to hate.
What the fuck?
Would you ask taxpayers to pay to take down any part of the wall on the nation's southern border?
So, if there are parts of the wall that are not useful in our defense, of course we should do it. The real point here is that we need to stop this man-made crisis at the border. Trump is the one who has created this crisis, and he has done it in no small part by helping destabilize the governments even further in Central America. He has withdrawn aid. That means that families have to flee for their lives, have to flee for any economic opportunity. You know, when I found out that our government was actually taking away children from their families. I went down to the border. I went down there immediately. I was in McAllen, Texas. And
the kids at the border don't even have a hardest time as like autistic kids in like actual schools. Like those kids in the border don't fucking get locked up in the solitary confinement rooms. Like that's the most. Like the autistic kids in this country would rather be border refugee children in the camps eating pizza than fucking in the solitary confinement room.
She knew what that meant. She wrapped up her baby and she ran for the border.
They're around their friends, socializing, probably playing soccer.
A great nation does not separate children from their families. We need to live our values at the border every single day.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Booker, a quick response.
Look, I want to be quick on this because I'd like to get back to something that wasn't included in.
So would we all.
Absolutely. If this is not effective, we see people cutting holes in his wall, what he brags about is just wrong. We need to have policies that respect dignity, keep us safe and strong. I wanted to return back to this issue of black voters.
Reminder, guys, I'm black. Nobody talked about how I was black. You went around and you asked everyone about their gayness and their pussies, and
black voters are pissed off and they're worried. They're pissed off because
reminder, I'm black too.
Attention to by politicians is when people are looking for their vote, and they're worried because the Democratic Party. We don't want to see people miss this opportunity and lose because we are nominating someone that isn't trusted, doesn't have authentic connection. And so that's what's on the ballot, and issues do matter. I have a lot of respect for the vice president. He has sworn me into my office as a hero. This week I hear him literally say that I don't think we should legalize marijuana. I
What a stupid fucking.
In our country is already legal.
Should we smoke a joint in honor of Booker?
Yeah.
You should spark one up because I'm dry right now. Otherwise, I'd be high as fuck.
More African Americans under criminal supervision in America than all
we
the
should
slaves
spark one up
since
for Rex.
1850 do not roll up into communities and not talk directly to issues that are going to relate to the
I loved when
liberation of
Ron
children,
Paul
because
used to
there are people
say,
in
just
Congress
like,
right
I want
now
to legalize
that
all
admit to
drugs.
smoking
I want to legalize
There are
like
people,
heroin.
kids are in jail right now
Yeah,
for
that
those
was-
drug crimes. And so these are the kind
That's
of
what
issues
I was saying. Like people, they need to be more extreme if they want to do anything.
have somebody
That sounds like kind of
election.
crazy, but
Let
they
me
have
give
to
you this
like.
data example.
They're all
We
pussies.
lost in Wisconsin
They're gonna get nothing
because of a
done.
massive diminution. A lot
They
of
have to like.
reasons.
Bernie's, I guess, the closest.
We
to
have
that,
our own
but he already
presidential
said-
candidate now. We have Zoltan Istvan, and we're running his whole campaign.
Senator Booker, Vice President Biden, you can respond to
We're
that.
gonna.
I'll be very brief.
We just got the
Number one, I
confirmation.
think we should decriminalize marijuana, period. And I think anyone who has a record should be let out of jail, their records expunged, it be completely zeroed out. But I do think it makes sense, based on data, that we should study what the long-term effects are for the use of marijuana. That's all it is. Number one, everybody gets out, record expunged. Secondly, I'm part of that Obama coalition. I come out of the black community in terms of my support.
Biden just said he was black. Holy shit. Biden just said.
3 former chairs.
Biden just came out as.
African American woman that ever been elected to the United States.
Did he just say that he was an African American woman?
No, my point is.
That's not true. The other one is here.
I said the first African American elected. First African American. So my point is that one of the reasons I was picked to be vice president was because of my relationship, long-standing relationship with the black community. I was part of that coalition.
Thank you. Krista?
Someone yelled. I didn't hear what the person in the audience yelled.
Quick break, but we are going to hear much more from the candidates when we come right back here in Atlanta, Georgia. Stay with us.
So we've learned a lot. We learned in this debate so far that Pete Buttigieg is going to make Skynet and install railguns on all the ships.
to detecting
And we learned that
threats,
Biden is black.
to scaling up your production, giving you a nice big edge over your competition. That's the power of edge-to-edge intelligence.
Welcome back. This is live coverage of the Washington Post MSNBC Democratic presidential debate. I'm Libby Casey, along with Cleve Woodson and Dave Weigel. We're in a quick 3-minute break right now. A race coming up as an issue, one that Joe Biden ended up sort of being put on the defensive on, Cleve, right there at the end.
Sure. You had, several candidates looking at this vigorous fight over African-American voters and going after them in a variety of ways. Buttigieg making an emotional...
What are they going to do without Kanye,
feels like to have his rights debated. Elizabeth Warren saying that plans for African-American benefits are baked into her plans. And then, Joe Biden saying, look, I have the support of all of these people. I mean, it really represents one of those key debates.
I think like you have to, if you're black, you kind of have to vote for Biden. Because Biden is like the polite reaffirmation that like Obama existed and that he mattered.
That is not an argument I found a lot of black voters be receptive to.
Yeah, I think that's why he has the
same thing, civil rights. I've not heard a lot of people
reception
high-fiving for that answer. And Warren always does this. She always brings it back to the root causes, redlining, racial discrimination, the wealth gap. She had, after disappearing for a little while, a couple chances to do that. Biden's answer on race, something he has done to his detriment a number of times is get defensive when it is implied that he is not the most qualified, he has not the best record. Him saying at the end that he was chosen by Barack Obama because of his record in the black community, not why he was chosen. He was chosen because he was a credible statesman with appeal to white voters. Is he going to lose debate points on that? I don't know, but it was a little bit strange to see.
Yeah, although it's probably important to point out that a lot of the African-American voters that I've talked to say they support Biden in part because of the things that he says about a long history, I've been doing this for a very long time. There's this thought, this worry that
I feel like
everybody
Biden
else is saying the right
has a very sort of
about
Southern
race,
Democrat
but
kind of
when it
vibe
comes
going
down
on.
to actually being there for African American peoples, they're not.
Like I feel like he's like the
Biden can actually
LBJ
say,
kind of
"Look,
candidate.
I've
Like
been
he's
there, right or wrong. This is what
I
I've
agree
done.
with that.
And this is evidence.
He
of
seems
what
like
I
the
would
more
do.
old school kind of
Bernie Sanders probably wouldn't be in
racist
on
Democrat.
that
He is.
Suffered with black voters.
There's like clips of him being
you
like
can buy
that.
on his website merchandise.
The one where he
showing him
was
getting
like,
arrested at a housing protest
not
in
all.
Chicago. He was a college student. Didn't get a
What'd he
chance to
say?
talk
It
about
was
that.
like,
another one of these where.
I don't know.
Channeling Biden
Something
now.
about
God
not
love
all
you.
black kids
Moderating
are
debate
poor or
is hard, but
something.
it's one of those where I was waiting for the one can to get it. They didn't quite get what would have been maybe a powerful answer. Yeah.
Cory Booker is saying, I have lived this life, not only as an African American who
I'm
has been
actually
voting since
black,
the age of
guys.
18, but as
Did
the
you
mayor
forget?
of
In
a
case
city
nobody
where these
noticed,
issues have come up.
I'm
Cory
black.
Booker makes some inroads here.
I think he did.
No one
reminding
wants
people the mystery of Cory Booker, that he is somebody. I think they'd be comfortable if he became the nominee. The way they'd be comfortable, probably more comfortable than with Amy Klobuchar in some ways, because he is more dynamic. He's a big wing record in the state. I think he got to make that point again pretty powerfully.
All right, great.
Can the
We'll
chat
stick with
sound
us.
off
More
if
from
Joe
you guys
Biden
as
is
soon as the
black?
debate wraps up. Let's go back to the Oprah Winfrey soundstage and this Washington
Oh,
Post MSNBC.
they're actually having the debate at the Oprah Winfrey soundstage. Why is this stage named after her?
Welcome back to the MSNBC Washington Post Democratic
Are
candidates
they on
debate.
hallowed ground?
Many states, including right
Are
here
they
where we are
on
tonight in
Oprah's
Georgia,
shooting location?
have passed laws that severely limit
feel like
or
someone
outright
should,
ban abortion.
Introduce
Right now,
Kanye
Roe
West to
versus Wade
Moldbug.
protects a woman's right to abortion nationwide.
Kanye's
Would
been
like
talking-
shatter the universe.
And abortion access
Kanye's been
disappears in
talking
some
about
states.
how like
Would you
America's on
intervene as
sale,
president to try to bring that
and you can
access
just
back,
buy it
Senator
up and
Klobuchar?
create your own. Like he's pretty
We
much like
should
a homesteader
codify
now.
Roe v.
He had a
Wade
real
into
thing the
law.
other day
That is what we
about
should do.
he said he was going to run in 2024, and then everyone in the audience laughed.
Yeah, and he like wasn't kidding.
And then he like got really dead serious and said like, "Why do you think I'm joking?"
Yeah, that was at Joel Osteen's thing, I think,
Doctors
right?
should go to jail. So no surprise that we're seeing these kinds of laws in Georgia and Alabama, where his allies are passing these bills. And what we have to remember is that the people are with us. And I predict this will be a big issue in the general election. And I just can't wait to stand across from Donald Trump and say this to him. You know what? The people are with us. Over 70% of the people support
That's
Roe
what she's
v.
going to
Wade.
say to Donald
Over
Trump.
90% of the people
You know what?
support funding
Actually,
for
people
Planned
like
Parenthood
us
and
more.
making sure
Actually,
that women can
we're
get the
good.
healthcare
We're the
they
good
need.
guys.
He is
Oh, that's
off
going
the
to be so
track on
devastating
this,
for Donald
and
Trump.
He will hear from the women of America, and this is how we're going to win this election.
Just this weekend, Louisiana.
Is he doing Roman salute? Cory Booker coming in with the Roman Nazi salute. Did you see that shit? Someone needs to get screen capping that clip right there.
Like him, someone who can win in a deep red
It better be
state,
on
but
Vox
who does not
tomorrow.
support abortion rights. Senator Warren.
Look, I believe that abortion rights are human rights. I believe that they are also
What do you mean abortion
economic
rights are human rights?
And protecting the right of a woman to be able to make decisions about her own body.
You want to
is
legalize
fundamentally
murder?
what we do and what we
she's
stand
saying.
for as a Democratic Party. Understand this.
Rex,
When
do you
someone
remember,
makes
did you ever
abortion
see that
illegal
video
in
of the
America,
woman
rich women
who had
will
an
still get
abortion
abortions.
and she
It's
like
just gonna
got
fall
pregnant
hard
so
on
she could
poor
have an
women.
abortion and she
It's gonna
made like a
fall hard
propaganda
on
video for
girls,
it?
Women who don't even know that they're
And
pregnant.
about like
because
no,
they've
this
been
one's I
molested
don't
by
think
an
I've seen it.
uncle. I want to be
it was a few
an
years ago.
America
There was like
where
some
everybody
kind
has a
of
chance.
unstable
And I
woman.
know it can be a hard
And
Is it
decision
Lindsay
for
Ellis?
people, but here's the thing. When it comes down
No,
to
it wasn't.
that decision,
It wasn't
a woman should
Lindsay
be able to
Ellis.
call on her
You mean like the
mother, she should be
YouTuber?
able to call on her
apparently
should be
she
able
did
to
a
call
like
on her
student
priest
film or
her
something about
rabbi. But the one
No, this was a
entity
woman
that should
doing
not
like
be in the middle
legit
of that
full-on
decision is the government.
real abortion. And they have her in the doctor's office getting the abortion, and she says that it's like giving birth.
Signed abortion restrictions in Louisiana.
And
Is
she's
there
like
room
really
for
into
the
having an
Democratic Party
abortion.
with
Like
those politics?
it's
like fucked up, man.
It's like a spiritual experience for her.
That's really
She like
fucking
actually,
sick.
she actually says that having an abortion is as good of a feeling as giving birth. Like she says, like this is like giving birth.
That's actually
Not
demonic.
even like realizing the irony.
Sanders, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Amy mentioned that women.
Not to do the tradcath thing, but I can
let me
totally
just
see
tell
how
you
that's
that if there's
demonic.
ever a time
Like,
in
that's
American
not
history
cool.
where the men of this country must stand with the women, this is the moment. And
Are you tradcast, Rex, now?
Very tired of hearing the
God, no.
hypocrisy from conservatives who say, get the government off our backs. We want small government. Well, if you want to get the government out of
If anything,
the
I'll
backs of
probably
the
end up back
American
with the
people, then
Mennonites.
understand that it is women who control their own bodies, not politicians.
Senator Sanders, thank you. Senator Booker.
This is a voting issue. This is a voter suppression issue. Right here in this great state of Georgia, it was the voter suppression, particularly of African American communities, that prevented us from having a Governor Stacey Abrams right now.
Yes.
And that is when you have undemocratic means, when you suppress people's votes to get elected, those are the very people.
But why
who are
does
gonna
no one
come
talk about
after
how
when you're
the
in
primary
office.
process
And this
is not
bill,
democratic
opposed
at
by
all?
over 70%. The heartbeat bill here, opposed by over 70% of Georgians, is the result from
State
voter
mandated
suppression. This
abortion
gets
is
back to
getting the
issue
government out of
about
our
making
way.
sure we are fighting every single day that whoever is the nominee, they can overcome the attempts to suppress the votes, particularly of low-income and minority voters, and particularly in the black community like we saw here in Georgia.
I feel like we need to be way more discriminating in who we allow to vote.
Individual states, as you
Like,
all
I can't
know,
believe that
set their own
the idea
rules
of
for voting and for elections.
you know, the whole
Depending on
purpose
where
of
you
like
live,
having
you may be required
ID
to show
only.
ID or not.
That should be
You
to
might
actually
have a lot of
decrease
days for
voters.
early
Of course,
voting,
that's what it's about.
or
You
fewer
want less
days
voters. I
or
support
none.
anything that
You
makes
might have a
fewer
polling place in
people
walking
able
distance,
to
or you
vote.
might have to drive or take a bus to the edge of town. With that in mind, our next question comes from Jenna in Maryland, who
Like,
asks,
these people are
what
saying
will
that,
you
like,
do at the executive level to
think about the
ensure that
poor
every
people who
American
can't
has
go take
equal
the bus
access
to the other side.
ballot
They have to
box?
take
Mayor,
a
who do
bus to the
Well,
DMV to
we
get their
need federal
ID. It's
leadership to
like, what kind of
establish
sob
voting
story
rights
is
for
that?
the 21st century, because this affects every other issue that we care about. Now,
The voting
the
age
House
should
of
be
Representatives
raised.
passed
I feel like you should be like have to be.
You
should have to have a
25 or,
PhD in
30.
something.
many good
You should have to have like your
die in
master's
Mitch
at
McConnell's
least
hands in the
to
United
be able to
States
vote.
Senate. We know
You have to
with the
show
White
that you're
House
like
in the
qualified
right
in
hands, we can make,
doing
for
something.
example, election days a federal holiday. We can use
What are
carrots
the- are
and
there voter
sticks to
IDs
induce
laws in
states to
Canada,
do the
Rex?
right thing with automatic voter registration.
Do they do any shit like
Same-day
that?
voter registration.
Someone in
Making
the
it
chat
easier
says says that Europe
to
is
vote and
very
in
strict.
particular recognizing that we cannot allow the kind of
Shit. I mean, I just show my ID and
voter suppression
like
or
proof of residence. That's about it.
dictates the outcome of election.
I don't know if you guys do it.
Voting even begin. begins.
I've never voted,
Right
so I
now,
don't know.
we have
I don't know what happens in there.
politicians picking out their voters rather than the other way around. That compounding with what is being done to restrict the right to vote means that our democracy is
If I ever
not
vote,
worthy of the name.
I
And while these process issues are not always
it'll be the end of
fashionable,
me.
we must act to reform our democracy itself, including when it comes to choosing our presidency. Like we do in every other election, giving it to the person who got the most votes.
I agree with what the mayor has just said, but this is a good example where he has said the right words, but I actually have the experience and am leading 11 of the bills that are in that House passed bill you just referred to. And I think this kind of experience matters. I have been devoted to this from the time that I've got to the Senate. And I think having that experience, knowing how you can get things done, leading the bills to take the social media companies to task, a bipartisan bill.
Is there an alarm going off on someone's end?
Oh, I think that's top on our end.
And stop the unbelievable
we're in
practice
the TekWars penthouse recording studio, so there's
bill, and I am so close to getting
there's
it
always
done. And the way
emergency
I get it done
vehicles.
is if I'm president. But just like I have won statewide, and Mayor, I have all appreciation for your good work as a local official, and you did not when you tried, I also have actually done this work. I think experience should
This
matter.
is like her whole theme is what she keeps saying. And she looks like she's going to cry, and she keeps saying, I've actually done this. No one else has done this. I've actually done
More
it.
than 100 years of Washington experience on this stage. And where are we right now as a country?
Oh.
I have the experience of bringing
You know that there's like some like really stupid people who are watching this debate right now,
and they just got like
who are like,
hyped on
there's
that.
like some stupid girl somewhere watching this, and she says to her friends that he's throwing shade or something. Like, you know that there's like absolute fucking slack-jawed, drooling, like full-on, like full hardcore retards out there.
Before it is too late.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Congresswoman Goward, on the original question of voting rights, please.
I mean, voting rights are essential for our democracy. Securing our elections is essential for our democracy. I've introduced legislation called the Securing America's Elections Act that mandates paper ballots to make sure that every single voter's voice is heard. But I want to get back to Pete Buttigieg and his comment about experience. Pete, you'll agree that the service that we both have provided to our country as veterans by itself does not qualify us to serve as commander-in-chief.
She's just like,
I think the most recent example of your inexperience in national security and foreign policy came from your recent careless statement about how you as president would be willing to send our troops to Mexico to fight the cartels.
Sicario, that shit.
Commander-in-chief, leader of our armed forces, I bring extensive experience serving for 7 years in Congress, on the Foreign Affairs Committee, on the Armed Services Committee, on the Homeland Security Committee, meeting with leaders of countries around the world, working with military commanders of different commands, dealing with high-level national security briefings, understanding what's necessary, the preparation that I've gotten to walk in on day one to serve as Commander-in-Chief.
Congresswoman, thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'll allow you to respond.
I know that it's par for the course in Washington to take remarks out of context, but that is outlandish even by the standards of today's politics.
Are you saying that you didn't say that?
I was talking about U.S.-Mexico cooperation. We've been doing security cooperation with Mexico for years, with law enforcement cooperation.
So we have Mayor Pete is the Sicario candidate and the Terminator candidate. He's the full-on Nickland T1, T2 canon Terminator fan on the stage who wants to make Skynet.
Alliances, and if your question is about experience, let's also talk about judgment. One of the foreign leaders you mentioned meeting was Bashar al-Assad. I have, in my experience, such as it is, whether you think it counts or not, since it wasn't accumulated in Washington, enough judgment that I would not have sat down with a murderous dictator like that.
So he's going full on. He's nuke Syria, World War III in Syria.
To Mexico to fight cartels, and your answer was yes. The fact checkers can check this out. No. But your point about judgment is absolutely correct. Our commander-in-chief does need to have good judgment. And what you've just pointed out is that you would lack the courage to meet with both adversaries and friends to ensure the peace and national security of our nation. I take the example of those leaders who have come before us, leaders like JFK,
Kissinger,
who met with Khrushchev, like Roosevelt, who met with Stalin,
like Donald Trump,
Reagan, who met and
why do
with
they hate that
Gorbachev.
Trump?
These issues of national security are incredibly important.
The Trump-Kim friendship
They want blood.
is like one of the most endearing aspects of the Trump presidency.
Yeah, it's like the only thing that he's really nailed.
Fighting regime change wars that undermine our national security.
Those
I'll bring
cute
real
photo
leadership
shoots.
and experience to the White House.
I've
got to respond.
Senator Sanders, I'm going to have a
original point. The American people understand that the political system we have today is corrupt. And it is not just
Bernie just
voter
completely
suppression, which
injected
cost the
himself
Democratic
into that.
Party a governorship here in this state, not just denying black people and people of color the right to vote, but we also have a system through Citizens United which allows billionaires to buy elections. So what we need to do simply
What does this have to do with
in every
Assad?
state in this country through the federal government. If you are 18, you have a right to vote. End of discussion. We have to overturn Citizens
Dude, fuck this
United.
guy. I fucking hate Bernie so much.
He doesn't even have like this is my whole problem with him is he has nothing to say about foreign policy. They're in a foreign policy.
He just ruined
question.
everything. That was
they're
like
talking
such a
about
good.
they're talking about Assad. Like Bernie just turns it back and just falls back on Citizens United. Oh, here's this asshole again.
Not only beat Donald Trump in 2020, but have a sweeping victory across the country. And what that's going to mean is turnout. In the United States,
nobody claps. Pause for applause.
Clap for him.
Persuade a few people who are Republicans.
Tom
like
Steyer's
us,
my
when
president.
Up to half the people don't vote at all because they think neither party tells the truth. No one.
Yeah, can we get you some Tom Steyer merch? Like now,
why would we vote?
You've gone full Tom Steyer.
At Next Gen America is the start of a conversation about why votes are so important. And if you look at 2018 and flipping the House, what really happened was Democratic voting went up by 3/4. In the 38 congressional districts where Next Gen America was turning out young people.
What's Next Gen America? We need to walk that back and get his vision for Next Gen America.
Dude, I'm picturing like,
yeah, I'm
this
picturing
guy's
like
like you give him billions of dollars to work with for
Cyberpunk
infrastructure.
2077.
I'm just picturing he's building like water parks, like colorful like Nick Hotel water parks.
Thank you very much.
This guy's imagination just seems,
Well,
I don't know, from
if I'm honest,
his whole
to
being
start
just
closing
seems so
statements.
wild.
And we are going to start tonight with Senator Booker. The floor is yours.
Okay,
Thank you, Rachel.
closing
It's an honor
statements.
To be here tonight. I have not yet qualified.
I can't believe
for
we
the
got through
December
this whole
stage.
fucking
I need
awful
your help
debate.
To do that. If you believe
Yeah, I've never
in
done
my
this
voice
before.
and
I've
that I
never
should be
I've
here,
never watched
please go
a
to
debate.
CoreyBooker.com. Please help.
Just plugging
I
your
mean, I'm not
website.
even American. This is
saw
new to
in the
me.
audience during the break, a man named John Lewis. And perhaps it's interesting and important for me to mention why I'm so grateful to him. I've been calling in this whole election for our need to fight and fight the right way by bringing people together to create transformative change, not just beat Donald Trump. That's
Steyer
the
is the
We need to go to
driver.
the ceiling. We need to go to the mountaintop. I am literally
He
here on
drives.
this stage right now because 50 years ago, there was
I don't know
a
what his
lawyer
platform
on a
is,
couch
but he
who
drives.
changed his life, changed his mind to get up and start representing families, one of them mine, who were discriminated against. The house I grew up in is because of that lawyer's activity. When I asked him why he did what he did, he told me that on March 7th, 1965, he was watching a movie called Judgment at Nuremberg on TV, and they interrupted that
There's
movie
like some
to show a
weird
bridge
history
in
about that.
Alabama
Oh
called
my
the
god.
Edmund
I was actually
Pettus
just looking in Devil's
And there he
Chessboard
saw John Lewis and
about
other
that
marchers
movie
who
today.
were
There's like
beaten
there's some
viciously
section
by
about like
Alabama state troopers.
something fucked up with that movie.
We all owe a debt that
Yeah.
we cannot repay. We all drink deeply from wells of freedom and liberty that we did not dig. This is the moment in America where we need
They
a
find
leader
the
that can
black
inspire
guy.
us to get up and fight again.
What is
that we have
Do you think really
truly
does anyone
moral
really
moment
believe
in
that that
America
black guy in the
like it was
audience
back
is
in
like looking at Cory
1965?
Booker and thinking
Give
like
me a chance to
it's
lead.
about time, brother.
John Lewis says is good trouble. I will
Finally a
challenge us.
black man up
ask
there.
more from you than any
We
other
worked for
president
this. This
has
is like
ever asked
that
before, because we
movie about the
need to
White House
mobilize a
butler.
new American
You remember
leader.
that? There was like some it was a really bad movie, but it was about the White House butler, and like he served through all these presidents and like Eisenhower and LBJ and everything.
Last time I was on this stage, I started by saying that everybody.
And then at the end, like he meets Obama and he like cries and he's like,
"We
finally made it. We finally made it."
But I'm different from everybody else on this stage. I know that the
I thought
government
you were
in
thinking of
Washington,
Corey
D.C.
in the
is
house
broken.
at first.
I know that it's been purchased by corporations.
Is Corey in the house? Is he a big sex offender or something? I didn't even
He
know
like
about
had
that.
a bunch of shit come out about him. I don't know what it was.
I don't know.
I have a couple friends that like know him.
What the fuck? Why are you always have
in Washington
like
itself.
Dan Aykroyd and Corey from Corey in the House? Why can't you get these guys on TekWars?
I'm the only person on this stage.
Corey in the
who
house.
spent decades
My friend would
building
like
an international business.
post pictures
Whoever
with
of us
him.
is the Democratic nominee
And then I remember
is
he
going to
started
have
getting
to
all this
face Mr. Trump or the Republican and talk
shit
about
in
the
the
economy,
press.
talk about
He like
growth.
went crazy.
Understand that. We
How can you run on the
make Mr.
economy
Trump
against Trump
what he is,
and
a
say that you
fraud
need
and a
growth?
failure
Yeah,
on the
Kyle
economy, which is
Massey.
his strong point. I'm the only person on this stage who will say that climate is my first priority, that it's our biggest challenge, but it's our biggest opportunity to recreate this country.
So he has
If you
no
want to beat Mr.
chance
Trump,
of
if you
winning
want
based
to
on
break the
that.
corporate stranglehold on this government, if you want to pass all of the progressive policies that everyone on this stage wants, I'm the person who can do it.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer.
I have spent a decade trusting the American people.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
Steyer.
asking you to trust me.
I trust you.
Congresswoman Gabbard, go ahead.
My personal commitment to you, to all of my
I want to
fellow
live in a
Americans
totalitarian
is to
society,
with respect
like in Star Trek
and
Deep Space
compassion,
Nine, in
so that we
Cardassia,
what
where
you
the
call
leaders'
aloha.
faces
Every
are on the
single
giant
person
billboards just
deserves to
talking
be
all the
treated with
time.
respect, regardless of race,
And I want it to be Tulsi.
religion, or gender,
She has that
or even your
vibe.
Politics, inclusion, unity, respect, aloha.
Or if you had
these
some
will
like
be the
cyborg
operating
graphical
principles
user interface.
for my administration. Now,
like
Dr. Martin Luther
Cortana
King
type thing.
visited Hawaii first back in 1959, where he expressed his appreciation
Tulsi pops
for what
up.
we call the aloha spirit. He said,
Aloha.
"We look
How
to
can I
you
help you?"
for inspiration as a bold example."
She's just literally saying her
for
whole
what you have
platform is summed
already
up by aloha and then
succeeded in the
going
areas
into
of
way too
racial
much
harmony
depth.
and racial justice, where we are still struggling to achieve in other sections of the country. He later went on to say, "As I looked out at the various faces in various colors mingled together like the waters of the sea, I see only
This is so
one
overly
face,
poetic
the
and like
face
He always
meaningless.
does this like
Working
Hawaiian
side by
native
side,
shit.
let's defeat the divisiveness of Donald Trump. Come together and usher in a 21st century of racial harmony, of racial justice, peace, inclusion, and true equality. Working side
Isn't
by
she like
side.
Hindi or some shit?
Let's make
Yeah, there's
Dr.
like I
King's
haven't looked into this
dream
at all,
our reality.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
but
Mr.
she has
Gabb,
like some weird Hindi religion bullshit.
I'm here with my wife, Evelyn, tonight. We have two young boys, Christopher and Damien. How many of you all are parents like us?
Oh, he has an autistic kid, I'm pretty
So
sure.
if you're a parent, you've had this thought, maybe you've been afraid to express it, and it is this: our kids are not all right. They're not all right because we're leaving them a future that is far darker than the lives that we have led as their parents. We are going through the greatest economic transformation in our country's history, the fourth industrial revolution, and it is pushing more and more of our people to the side. We talk as if Donald Trump is the cause of all of our problems. He is not. He is a symptom, and we need to cure the disease. Now, my first move was not to run for president of the United States, because I am not insane. My first move was to go to DC, talk to our leaders, and say, technology is ripping us apart, immigrants are being scapegoated, our kids are being
The
left
anti-tech
behind,
candidate.
and the American dream
Yeah,
that
I
my
guess he's
parents
Did he
like-
just come out as
is
an
dying
Prim?
before our eyes.
He
And the
is,
people in
he's a
Washington,
Luddite.
D.C. had nothing for this. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to talk about an issue they don't think they have
He's
a
like the
solution for.
anti-accelerationist,
I'm
I
not running
guess.
for president because I fantasize
He
about
want
being
oh
mayor.
yeah he I guess is
I'm running for
is that his
president
whole thing
because,
now
like
is he
many of
wants
you here in this
to
room
put
tonight,
the
I'm a
brake on
parent
the
and a
acceleration with
patriot, and I
UBI
have seen
to
the future
make it a
that
bit
we're leaving
easier.
for our
Yeah.
kids, and
I
it
don't
is
know.
not something I'm willing to accept.
This
We
is
need
why
to
Yang
think
Gang
Mayor Pete-
fundamentally fails. I've never. I want to go back and like give myself credit for like being anti-Yang Gang from like the very beginning.
And make it so that we can look our kids in the eyes.
Yeah, that's true. You
and
were
say
never
to them
into it.
And believe it. Your country loves you, your country values you, and you will be all right.
Just seems so forced to me.
Senator Klobuchar.
I don't doubt that people
this week,
really believed in the UBI stuff, but at the same time, it just felt a little off.
Yeah, no, because now he's doing like all the really memey, like I'm at the weed farm, bro. It's sort of stuff. It's he's gone.
He's the Reddit candidate.
He doesn't know restraint in memes. He goes full cringe.
That whole thing was
like
just
he's the Reddit candidate. He's like the pure Reddit candidate.
Sense of decency, sir. I want us to remember that this election
like
is
Fortnite
an
dance.
economic check on this president. And I have bold ideas.
He's like the Nugs for Carter candidate.
College more affordable.
Like I'm gonna give you all
of healthcare, yes.
your lifetime free nugs, just like Carter on Ellen's show got from Wendy's.
And when you look at the people that turned out in Kentucky and turned out in Virginia, people turned out that didn't vote in 2016. African Americans are turning out like we didn't see before.
Yang is Rogan's Manchurian candidate.
And we must get our fired up Democratic base with us. But we also, let's get those independents.
I'm gonna put this lady at the very bottom of like how people did in this debate.
Dude,
like she's dead last.
I want a note on Twitter, like one of those pictures from the Notes app. That's like a whole written out statement about like how she is okay mentally after this debate, because I'm like really concerned right now that she's not okay and that she's like about to do some Joker shit.
Every single time. If you
She looks like she's about to have a mental breakdown.
You believe that our work doesn't end on election day,
Her
but
head has
begins
been shaking
on
for the past
Inauguration
2
Day.
hours.
Join us, amyklobuchar.com.
Senator Klobuchar, thank you.
Senator Harris.
Gumroad/TekWars.com.
So we're in a fight. This is a fight for our rule of law, for our democracy, and for our system of justice. And it's a fight we need to win. And to fight this fight, I believe we have to have the ability to not only have a nominee who can go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, and I have taken on Jeff Sessions, I've taken on Bill Barr, I've taken on Brett Kavanaugh. I know I have the ability to do that. We also need someone who can unify the party and the country, and who has the experience of having done that. I've done that work.
They're all the same. Oh my God, this pisses me off so much because they're all saying, I have the experience to do all this shit, and it's all this, they all agree it's all the same shit. I have the experience to do this, and they're all saying I have the experience.
My entire career has been spent having one client.
What does that
and one
mean?
client only, the people. I have never represented a corporation. I have never represented a special interest. And in this election, justice and the various injustices people are facing, regardless of where they live or their race or gender, are very much on the ballot, from economic justice to reproductive justice to healthcare justice to educational justice. And I truly believe that when we overcome these injustices, we will then unlock the potential of the American people and
So she's just going to litigate
America. And
our way to
that's the America
freedom.
I believe in. That's the America
Because
I
the court
see,
system is
and that
so
is why I'm
known
running for
for its
president.
effectiveness and its
Thank you,
efficiency.
Senator Harris.
Sure, that won't take 50 million years.
Mayor Buttigieg, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I want to remark that we're in the city of Atlanta, a city where a great local leader, Maynard Jackson, helped create the black middle class that Atlanta is known by ensuring that taxpayer dollars were spent in a way that reflected
I'll debate
the need to
Nick's
expand
Fuentes.
opportunity to those who were
I
excluded.
don't care.
And just as local leaders
I
have
asked him to
shown
come on
great
the show
leadership,
once and
we
he
need
was
to
always
use
saying,
the powers of the president.
he was busy doing his
on
own.
challenges like
But
this,
whatever. I would talk to him
expanding
anytime.
opportunity
I've been
and
on
expanding a
the
sense of
Weekly Swell with
belonging
Nick before.
to those who have been excluded in this country. I'm not only running to defeat Donald Trump, I am running to prepare for the day that begins when Donald Trump has left office, to launch the era that must come after Trump. That era must be
He's like getting into
characterized
some like serious
not by
like
exclusion,
eschatology here.
but by belonging. And so must our campaign.
Of like Trump
I am
is like
inviting
the
progressives who have agreed on these issues we've been talking about tonight all
millenarianism
along.
of like
Moderates who are
progressivism,
ready to be part of
and
this
that like
coalition. And
he's
a
the
lot
second
of
coming,
future former
and then he's going to usher in like
who I know are
the 1,000
watching
years
this, disgusted
kingdom
by
of
what is
God on
happening
earth
in their
under a
own
gay
party
guy.
and in this country. I want you to know that everybody is welcome in this movement that we're building, and everybody is welcome in this future that we must create. I hope you go to PeteForAmerica.com, join this effort, and help us create a better era for the American people beginning in November.
His nose kind of grosses me out, so
Senator Sanders.
Yeah, I noticed he was like a
word about
like from the Grinch movies. The
unusual as it
Whoville
may
people.
I am the son of an immigrant, young man of 17, who came to this country without a nickel in his pocket. I have some sense of the immigrant experience. I will stand with the 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country. At the age of 21, as a member of a civil rights group at the University of Chicago, I was arrested, spent a night in jail.
Yeah, me and Bernie
and
went
I
to the
have
same
been committed
school.
to the fight against
Were
all forms
you
of
Chicagoans?
discrimination, racial discrimination.
I wouldn't vote for
sexism,
anyone who went to the University of
homophobia,
Chicago, to be honest.
xenophobia, and religious bigotry. I will lead an administration that will look like America, will end the divisiveness brought by Trump and bring us together. During this campaign, I am proud to say that I have received more campaign contributions
Bernie really doesn't know how to
than any candidate at this point
stir
in an
this
election
shit.
in American history. Over
Like, he
4
doesn't know
million
how to
contributions, averaging
say really fucked up shit that
$18
get.
Yeah, he needs some more chaos.
Like, he needs to say
that is not
interesting
only going to beat Trump,
things that.
but transform America, that doesn't have a super PAC, doesn't do fundraisers at wealthy people's homes. Please join us at BernieSanders.com. Thank you.
Like his performance was pretty
Senator Warren, the floor is yours.
busted and like not interesting.
So, thank you. You know, I listened to this debate tonight, and I hear a lot of really good ideas. But I take a look at the issues we've talked about. We've talked about
We gotta hear
climate
Warren's
change. We've talked
statement,
about
and our
defense
audio just stopped
spending.
working.
We've talked about private health insurance. We should have talked about gun violence. What do these issues have in common? Well, first, they touch people all over this country
Nothing,
in their everyday
nothing
lives. And what is the second thing they have in common? We know what we need to do. We have a lot of good ideas for how to fix it, and the majority of Americans are with us on it.
What's she saying?
And yet,
We'll never be
we
able to
don't
judge this
make
debate
change.
now.
Why not? Because of corruption. Because we have a government that works better for big drug companies than it does for people trying to fill a prescription. It works better for a giant defense industry than it does for everyone who worries about the money that goes into arms instead of into our public schools. We have a government that works
Oh no,
for those
we're
at the top and not
I'll just
for
have to go by the
anyone else.
body
I
language
have
of
the
this, because
biggest
now I don't know
anti-corruption plan since
what
Watergate.
what
It
Elizabeth Warren is
involves
saying
ending
here.
lobbying as we know it, blocking the revolving door between
She looks boring as
industry
ever.
and Washington, making everyone who runs for federal office put their tax returns online. We have to have the courage not to make just individual changes, not to fight for little pieces. We want to make real progress on climate, then we have to start by attacking the corruption that gives the oil industry and other fossil fuel industries a
Oh, there you go.
stranglehold over this country. I am so grateful to be here, and I am grateful to an America that gave the daughter of a janitor a chance to become a public school teacher, a chance to become a college professor, a chance to become a United States senator, and a
Oh,
chance
she's just
to
saying
become
that she's
candidate
like
for
the
president
daughter of a
the United
janitor, so
States.
she gets to be president.
Vice President Biden.
Biden gets the final word.
I assume when we're talking about the corruption of the federal government, we weren't talking about Barack Obama and his spotless administration. He made so much progress. But one thing we haven't talked about here today,
No one really liked that.
we haven't
There
we
wasn't.
talked about everything. We haven't talked about the one thing I think is most consequential. You know, the American people have an enormous opportunity. There's incredible. I've never been more optimistic about our prospects in my entire career.
I guess everyone forgot about Obama
in the United States Senate. Folks, we are in a position
bugging
where
the
we
Associated
have the
Press.
wealthiest nation in the world.
Like,
Our
what do you
workers are
mean?
more productive than workers around the world, 3 times as productive as workers in Asia. We have more great research universities that the people own than all the rest of the world combined. We're in a position where we've led not by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. I'm so tired of everybody walking around like, woe is me, what are we going to do? Let's remember, This is the United States of America. There has never, ever, ever been a time when we've set our mind to do something, we've been unable to do it. Never.
Except to
never,
pick
never.
a Democrat
So it's time to
candidate who
remember
doesn't
the word.
suck.
Get up.
America can't manage
Let's
that.
take back this country and lead the world again. It's within our power to do it. Get up and take it back.
Vice President Biden.
That was the most alive I've ever
And let me
seen
take
him,
this
at least.
opportunity to thank all of the candidates.
I don't know.
for
Okay,
a
who won?
spirited and
It's over.
excellent debate.
Who cares?
Well, I want to thank all of you,
Who
and I want
won?
to tell you that on MSNBC tonight, my colleague Brian Williams is going to pick up our coverage
Yeah,
in just a moment. I also, before we go, want to thank everybody here in the audience. I want to thank
I don't
the
know.
city of
Who are you
Atlanta,
giving it to?
and from all of us here at the
It's so hard to support any of them. I'm giving it to Booty Judge because
Yeah, I was gonna say,
he
I'm
went
gonna
full
say
time. Bernie just, I always want more from him. He's just not.
He
doesn't
needs to go full revolution.
He doesn't go full hard on. Like he's not full Bolshevik.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm Libby Casey.
He would kill it if he like lit some fires.
Like he has to say that like let's have the revolution. Like he can't go on there and say Obama was right.
Sitting with you as you listen to them on
We have to, you know, we don't want to be too revolutionary. Like he needs to go full on and say we need like an expropriation by like Stalinists of like wealth in the country. That like we need bank robberies and shit. Like he needs to.
Yeah. He needs to go full anti-revisionist.
Exactly. But I don't know. I guess that's the whole debate. So we'll cut the stream off now. I guess we'll put this up on Gumroad.
A democratic debate.
And we didn't get banned from Twitch.
Yeah, that was good.
All right, thanks a lot,
you.
Rex, for coming on and streaming with us. Thanks for the
No
stream.
problem. I'd love to come back sometime.
Yeah,
Maybe
let's-
do some UFO or cryptid stuff.
Yeah, let's do it again
Absolutely.
real soon. I don't know. I wanna get one with Logo and you.
Oh yeah, sure.
But we'll.
Hell, bring Moldbug on. And we'll ask him the UFO question. I want to hear what he thinks on UFOs.
All right, everyone, go on the Gumroad and subscribe because we're doing these streams and we just subjected ourselves to that. But we'll be back. Thanks, guys.
All right, peace.
Hey, you guys take care.
Have a good night.